4 years ago, Lena Cross vanished without a trace, pregnant and terrified. Now she's standing in a Chicago cafe, her daughter's hand in hers, staring into the eyes of the man she ran from, Victor Hale, the most dangerous crime boss in the city. Except he's not a crime boss anymore. And the little girl hiding behind Lena's legs has his storm gray eyes. One look is all it takes for Victor to know the truth. The child is his. The woman he never stopped searching for just walked back into his life, and someone else has been watching them both. Stay with me until the end of this story, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. The cafe smelled like burnt espresso and cinnamon, a warm pocket of noise in the heart of downtown Chicago. Rain drummed against the windows, blurring the rush of taxis and pedestrians into streaks of yellow and gray. Inside, the hiss of the steam wand and the low murmur of conversation filled the space with a kind of anonymity that Lena Cross had learned to crave. She stood in line with Maya's small hand tucked firmly in hers, her daughter's other hand clutching a worn stuffed rabbit with one missing ear. Maya was almost 4 now, all wild dark curls and curious eyes that took in everything with the solemnity of someone far older. Lena had dressed her in yellow rain boots and a denim jacket, the kind of outfit that made her look like any other child on any other ordinary afternoon. Except nothing about this afternoon was ordinary. Lena had made a mistake coming back to Chicago. She'd known it the moment the plane touched down at O'Hare 3 days ago, known it in the anxious flutter in her chest as the cab driver navigated familiar streets. But her mother was sick, really sick this time, and there were things that couldn't be done over the phone or through hurried video calls. So she'd come back, telling herself it would be quick, a week at most. In and out before anyone noticed. Before he noticed. She ordered a hot chocolate for Maya and a black coffee for herself, her voice steady despite the knot tightening in her stomach. The barista, a young woman with bright pink hair and a nose ring, smiled at Maya and added extra whipped cream without being asked. Lena managed to thank you, paid, and moved toward the pickup counter, her eyes instinctively scanning the room. Old habits. She'd spent 4 years looking over her shoulder, checking reflections in windows, memorizing exit routes. 4 years of building a new life in a small town in Oregon where nobody knew her real name and nobody asked questions. She'd waitressed, saved money, kept her head down. She'd become someone else entirely, a single mother with a quiet life and no past worth mentioning. But you couldn't outrun a ghost forever, and Victor Hale was the kind of ghost that had roots. The barista called her name, well, the name she'd given anyway, and Lena reached for the drinks. Maya tugged on her sleeve. "Mama, can I sit by the window?" Lena glanced at the row of small tables near the rain-streaked glass, exposed, visible. Every instinct screamed no, but Maya was looking up at her with those wide, hopeful eyes, and Lena couldn't remember the last time she'd let her daughter do something as simple as pick a seat in a cafe. "Okay, baby, but stay close." They settled at a corner table, Maya immediately pressing her nose to the glass to watch the rain. Lena sat with her back to the wall, one hand wrapped around her coffee, the other resting on the strap of her bag. The weight of her phone inside was a small comfort. She could be out the door in 10 seconds if she needed to be. She took a sip of coffee and let herself breathe. That was when the door opened. The bell above it chimed, a soft sound that shouldn't have carried over the noise of the cafe. But Lena heard it. She felt it, the way you feel a shift in air pressure before a storm. She looked up, and the world stopped. Victor Hale stood in the doorway, rain dripping from the shoulders of his black coat, his dark hair damp and pushed back from his face. He was taller than she remembered, or maybe she'd just forgotten the way he filled a room without even trying. Broad shoulders, sharp jawline, and those eyes, storm gray and relentless, the kind of eyes that saw everything and forgot nothing. He hadn't seen her yet. He was shaking rain from his coat, scanning the cafe with the casual vigilance of someone who never stopped calculating angles and exits. 4 years ago, that look had terrified her. Now it made her heart stop for an entirely different reason. Because he wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be in the shadows, running the empire he'd built with blood and fear. He was supposed to be untouchable, unreachable, a name whispered in back rooms and corporate boardrooms alike. Victor Hale didn't stand in line at cafes. He didn't wait for anything. And yet here he was. Lena's first instinct was to run, grab Maya, slip out the side door, disappear into the rain before he turned his head. But her body wouldn't move. She was frozen, her pulse hammering in her ears, her fingers locked around the coffee cup. Then Maya laughed. It was a bright, delighted sound, the kind only a child could make. She was watching a dog outside, its owner struggling with an inside-out umbrella. The sound cut through the noise of the cafe like a bell, and Victor turned. His gaze swept the room, passed over her, and stopped. Time didn't just slow, it shattered. Lena watched the recognition move through him in stages, first confusion, as if his mind couldn't quite place the woman sitting in the corner, then shock, a visible tightening of his jaw, a stillness that came over him like a predator catching a scent, and then something else, something that looked almost like pain. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at her across the 20 feet of space and noise and rain-soaked strangers, his eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. She saw the exact moment his gaze shifted, dropped, landed on Maya. The little girl had turned back to her hot chocolate, oblivious to the seismic shift happening around her. She was humming to herself, swinging her legs under the table, her rabbit tucked under one arm. The overhead light caught her profile, the curve of her nose, the set of her jaw, the color of her eyes as she glanced up briefly to smile at her mother. Storm gray eyes, identical to the ones currently staring at her from across the cafe. Lena watched the realization hit Victor like a physical blow. His whole body went rigid, his hand still on the strap of his shoulder bag. Rain forgotten. She saw his chest rise and fall once, sharply, as if he'd been punched, saw the color drain from his face and then flood back, anger and confusion and something she couldn't name all warring in his expression. He knew. One look. That was all it had taken. Lena's hands started to shake. She set down her coffee before she spilled it, her mind racing through options. The side door, the bathroom, the kitchen, maybe, if she could get past the counter. But Maya was singing now, something about rain and puddles, and Lena couldn't move without drawing attention, couldn't run without making a scene. And Victor was already walking toward her. He moved through the cafe like water, smooth and inevitable, his eyes never leaving hers. People stepped aside without realizing they were doing it, some ancient survival instinct clearing a path. Lena's heart slammed against her ribs. She wanted to grab Maya and bolt. She wanted to scream. She wanted to disappear into the floor. But she'd run once before, and it had brought her right back here. Victor stopped at their table. Up close, he looked different. Older, maybe, though he couldn't have been more than 35. There were new lines at the corners of his eyes, a tightness to his mouth that hadn't been there before. He was dressed simply, dark jeans, a charcoal sweater under his coat, nothing like the tailored suit she remembered. But the power was still there, coiled beneath his skin like a live wire. Lena. Her name in his voice was a punch to the chest, low and rough, shaped by 4 years of silence and unanswered questions. She hadn't heard him say it since the night she'd left, the night she'd walked out of his penthouse with nothing but the clothes on her back and a secret growing inside her. She forced herself to meet his eyes. Victor. Maya looked up, her gaze bouncing between them with open curiosity. Mama, who's that? The question hung in the air like smoke. Lena's throat closed. She didn't have an answer, nothing that wouldn't shatter everything. But Victor crouched down, moving slowly, deliberately, until he was at eye level with Maya. The gesture was so unexpected that Lena forgot to breathe. Hi, he said softly. I'm an old friend of your mom's. Maya studied him with the seriousness of a judge. Then she held up her rabbit. This is Mr. Hops. He's missing an ear, but Mama says that makes him special. Victor's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, something raw and unguarded. Mr. Hops is very lucky to have you taking care of him. I take care of Mama too. She gets sad sometimes. Maya, Lena said quickly, her voice sharper than she intended. Finish your hot chocolate, baby. But Victor didn't look away from Maya. He was drinking her in, every detail, as if trying to memorize her face. And Lena knew what he was seeing. The dark curls that matched his own, the stubborn set of her chin, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, exactly the way he did. The eyes, those storm gray eyes that left no room for doubt. Victor stood slowly, his gaze finally lifting to Lena's. The raw emotion there nearly broke her. Betrayal, rage, grief, and underneath it all, something that looked like hope struggling to stay alive. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "No." The word came out flat, final. "We don't. Lena, not here. Not now." She was shaking, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "You need to leave." "I'm not going anywhere." His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "Not until you tell me why my daughter doesn't know I exist." The words hit like a slap. Maya looked up sharply, confusion crossing her small face. Lena felt the world tilting, felt the careful walls she'd built over 4 years starting to crack. "Please," she whispered. "Victor, please. Not like this." Something in her voice must have reached him because he took a step back. But his eyes never left hers, and the promise in them was unmistakable. "This isn't over." "I'll be outside," he said. "Take your time. But we are having this conversation, Lena, today." He turned and walked out, the bell chiming again as the door closed behind him. Through the rain-streaked window, Lena could see him standing on the sidewalk, his hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on the cafe entrance. Waiting. Maya tugged on her sleeve. "Mama, why did that man say he's my—" "Drink your chocolate, sweetheart." Lena's voice was shaking now, her whole body trembling with adrenaline and fear. "We need to go soon." But even as she said it, she knew there was nowhere to run. Not anymore. Because Victor Hale had found them, and he wasn't letting go. Lena managed to keep it together long enough to get Maya through her hot chocolate and out the door. The rain had lightened to a drizzle, the kind that hung in the air like mist. Victor was exactly where he'd said he'd be, leaning against a lamppost 15 feet from the cafe entrance, his coat collar turned up against the damp. He straightened when he saw them. Maya was chattering about the dog they'd seen earlier, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. Lena gripped her hand tighter than necessary, her free hand already reaching for her phone. She could call a cab, get Maya to her mother's house, lock the doors and pretend this never happened, except Victor was already moving toward them. "Lena, please." The please nearly undid her. Victor Hale didn't say please. He gave orders, made demands, took what he wanted without asking. But there was something different in his voice now, something that sounded almost like desperation. "I have nothing to say to you," she said, hating how weak her voice sounded. "Then listen." He stopped a few feet away, careful not to crowd her. His eyes flicked to Maya, softened almost imperceptibly, then returned to Lena. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. You don't get to ask me for anything. I know." His jaw tightened. "I know what you think of me, what you thought I was. But things have changed, Lena. I've changed." She laughed, a bitter sound. "People like you don't change. People like me." He repeated the words slowly, as if tasting them. "You mean criminals, monsters. Is that what you told yourself when you ran?" "I told myself the truth." Her voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "I told myself that I couldn't raise a child in your world, that I couldn't watch her grow up surrounded by violence and blood money, and I'm not in that world anymore." The words stopped her cold. Victor took a breath, his eyes never leaving hers. "I walked away 3 years ago, sold everything, cut every tie, buried every connection. I'm not that man anymore, Lena. I haven't been for a long time." She wanted to believe him. The desperate, foolish part of her that had loved him once wanted to believe it so badly it hurt. But she'd learned the hard way that wanting something didn't make it true. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I can prove it." He reached slowly into his coat pocket, and Lena's whole body tensed, but he just pulled out a phone, unlocked it, and held it out to her. "Check, search my name, Victor Hale, see what you find." She didn't take the phone. "I'm not playing your games." "It's not a game." His voice was quiet, intense. "I disappeared from that life the same way you disappeared from mine. The difference is, I've been looking for you every day since." That stopped her. "What? You think I didn't notice when you left?" His voice cracked, just slightly. "You think I didn't tear this city apart trying to find you? I had people searching hospitals, airports, bus stations. I called in every favor I had, and when I couldn't find you, I thought—" He broke off, his jaw working. I thought you were dead. Lena's vision blurred. She blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. I had to leave. Why? The word was barely more than a whisper. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you give me a chance to... To what? She couldn't keep the anger out of her voice anymore. To lock me in a gilded cage? To control every aspect of my life? I saw what you did to people who crossed you, Victor. I saw the blood on your hands. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to trust me. His voice was raw now, all pretense of control gone. You were supposed to know that I would have done anything to keep you safe, that I would have burned my whole empire to the ground if you'd asked me to. I couldn't ask you to do that. So you just left. The pain in his voice was a living thing. You took my child and you ran, and you let me think I'd lost you forever. Maya had gone very quiet. She was looking up at Lena with wide, worried eyes, picking up on the emotion even if she didn't understand the words. Lena crouched down, smoothing her daughter's hair with trembling hands. It's okay, baby. Mama's okay. But she wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. Victor crouched down too, mirroring her position. This close, she could see the shadows under his eyes. The fine lines stress had carved into his face. He looked at Maya with such naked longing that Lena's heart cracked. What's her name? He asked softly. Lena closed her eyes. Maya. Her name is Maya. Maya. He said it like a prayer. How old is she? 3.5. The math was simple, brutal. Lena watched him do it, watched the confirmation settle over him like a weight. She's mine, he said. Not a question. A statement of fact. Lena couldn't lie, not with Maya's eyes staring at her, storm gray and unmistakable. Yes. Victor's breath left him in a rush. He reached out, stopped himself, his hand hovering in the air between them. Can I... His voice broke. Can I talk to her? Victor, please. There was that word again, desperate and raw. Please, Lena. I'm not asking for anything else. Just let me talk to my daughter. The word daughter hung in the air like a bomb. Maya looked between them, her small face serious. Mama, is he really my daddy? The question shattered something inside Lena. She'd known this moment would come eventually. She'd planned for it, rehearsed answers in her head, tried to prepare herself. But nothing could have prepared her for the hope and fear and desperate love in her daughter's voice. Yes, baby, she whispered. He is. Maya turned to Victor, studying him with that solemn intensity she got when she was thinking hard about something. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and wrapped her small arms around his neck. Victor went completely still. For a moment, he just knelt there in the drizzle, this dangerous man brought to his knees by a child's embrace. Then, slowly, carefully, he wrapped his arms around her and pulled her close. His eyes closed, his face pressed into her dark curls, and Lena saw his shoulders shake with the force of emotion he was trying to contain. Hi, Daddy, Maya said simply, as if she'd been waiting her whole life to say those words. Victor's voice, when he spoke, was wrecked. Hi, sweetheart. Lena stood there on the sidewalk, watching her past and her present collide, and felt the last of her defenses crumble. She'd run to protect Maya from Victor's world. She'd built a new life on the foundation of that fear. But looking at them now, at the way Victor held their daughter like she was made of glass and starlight, at the way Maya's small hand curled trustingly in his, Lena realized that maybe she'd been protecting Maya from the wrong thing. Maybe the real danger wasn't Victor. Maybe it was the world she'd tried to build without him. Victor pulled back slowly, his hands still gentle on Maya's shoulders. You're so beautiful, he said softly. You look just like your mama. Mama says I have your eyes. His gaze flicked to Lena, sharp and searching. She does? Lena swallowed hard. I never lied to her about you. I didn't tell her everything. What did you tell her? That her father loved her very much. That he couldn't be with us, but that he would have if he could. Victor's jaw tightened. You were half right. Before Lena could respond, Maya tugged on Victor's sleeve. Do you really love me? More than anything in the world, he said without hesitation. I didn't know about you until today, Maya, but now that I do, I promise you, I'm never going away again. Victor, Lena started, alarm flaring, but Maya was beaming. Really? You'll stay? If your mama lets me, Victor said carefully, his eyes on Lena. But that's up to her. Lena wanted to scream. He'd just handed her all the power, made her the one who had to decide, and they both knew she couldn't say no. Not with Maya looking at her like that, hope shining in her storm-gray eyes. We can't do this on a sidewalk, she said finally. Not like this. Then where? Victor stood, lifting Maya easily into his arms. She went willingly, already curling against his chest like she belonged there. Your place? Mine? Neutral ground? I don't even know where you live. I have an apartment in River North, nothing like the penthouse. His voice was careful, controlled. I can send you the address, or we can meet somewhere public if that makes you more comfortable. Lena's mind raced. Her mother's house was out of the question. A public place felt wrong for the conversation they needed to have. And she sure as hell wasn't going to his apartment, neutral or not. There's a park, she said finally. Lincoln Park, near the zoo. Meet me there in an hour. Victor nodded, already setting Maya down carefully. Okay, Lincoln Park, 1 hour. Maya grabbed Lena's hand, then reached for Victor's. Will you walk with us? Victor looked at Lena, waiting for permission. Every instinct told her to say no, to grab Maya and run, to put as much distance between them and this dangerous, complicated man as possible. But Maya was looking up at her with such hope, and Victor was standing there like he was afraid to breathe, and Lena was so tired of running. Just to the corner, she said. Then we need to go. Maya cheered and started walking, pulling them both along. Victor fell into step on Maya's other side. His long stride shortened to match their pace. They made it half a block before Maya started chattering about Mr. Hops and her favorite color, and the songs she'd learned at daycare. Victor listened like she was reciting poetry. Lena watched them from the corner of her eye, this surreal tableau of normalcy. Father and daughter, walking in the rain. Anyone passing by would think they were just another family on an ordinary afternoon, but there was nothing ordinary about this. At the corner, Lena stopped. This is far enough. Maya's face fell. But Daddy just got here. I know, baby, but we'll see him again soon. She hoped the lie sounded convincing. Remember? We're meeting him at the park. Victor crouched down again, his movements careful and deliberate. Your mama's right, but I'll see you very soon, okay? I promise. Okay. Maya threw her arms around him again, and Lena saw Victor's eyes close, saw him breathe her in like he was memorizing the moment. When he stood, his eyes were bright. Lincoln Park, 1 hour. 1 hour, Lena confirmed. She watched him walk away, his hands in his pockets, his shoulders set against the drizzle. He didn't look back. But Lena knew, with the certainty of someone who'd once known him better than anyone, that he was aware of every step they took in the opposite direction. Maya tugged her hand. Mama, is Daddy really going to stay? Lena looked down at her daughter, at those hopeful storm-gray eyes, and felt her heart break all over again. I don't know, sweetheart, she said honestly. I really don't know. But she had a feeling she was about to find out. Lincoln Park was nearly empty when Lena arrived, the rain having driven most people indoors. She'd taken Maya to her mother's house first, endured 20 minutes of questions she couldn't answer, and left her daughter in the care of a grandmother who clearly thought Lena had lost her mind. Maybe she had. She found Victor waiting by the lion statues near the zoo entrance, his coat collar still turned up, his dark hair damp from the drizzle. He saw her coming and straightened, his whole body tensing with an alertness that reminded her exactly who he used to be. Where's Maya? He asked immediately. With my mother. Safe. She stopped a few feet away, maintaining distance. We need to talk without her hearing. Victor nodded slowly. Okay, talk. Lena had spent the entire cab ride rehearsing what she wanted to say, but now that she was here, the words scattered like leaves. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. Why did you really leave? Victor asked when she didn't speak. Not the reasons you told yourself, the real reason. Lena looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd once commanded an empire with a word, who'd made grown men tremble, who'd held the entire city in his palm. and saw for the first time the exhaustion beneath the control. "I was pregnant and terrified," she said quietly. "I'd watched you hurt people, Victor. I'd seen the things you were capable of, and I thought," her voice broke, "I thought that if I stayed, if I raised our child in that world, I'd be just as guilty as you were. So you ran. I survived." She lifted her chin. "I built a life for Maya, a good life, safe, normal, everything I never had with you. And you think I couldn't have given her that?" His voice was rough. "You think I wouldn't have done anything to keep both of you safe? I think you would have tried to keep us locked in a tower somewhere, surrounded by guards, living in fear every single day. That's not safety, Victor. That's prison." He flinched. "Is that really what you think of me?" "It's what I knew of you." Lena's hands were shaking. She shoved them in her pockets. "You controlled everything, everyone. You didn't ask, you took. And I wouldn't let you do that to our daughter." Victor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You're right." Lena blinked. "What?" "You're right." He looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was raw, unguarded. "That's exactly who I was. I controlled everything because I was terrified of losing control. I hurt people because I thought it was the only way to stay on top. And I would have locked you in a tower if I thought it would keep you safe, because I didn't know any other way to love someone." The admission hung between them, stark and honest. "But I'm not that man anymore," Victor continued. "I haven't been for 3 years. I walked away from everything, the business, the violence, all of it. I rebuilt my life from nothing, and I've been searching for you every single day since, hoping that maybe, somehow, I could prove to you that I changed." "Why?" Lena's voice cracked. "Why did you change?" "Because losing you broke something in me." His voice was raw. "Because I realized too late that everything I'd built meant nothing without you. So I tore it all down and started over. I thought," he laughed bitterly, "I thought if I became someone worthy of you, maybe I'd find you again. Maybe I'd get a second chance." Lena's vision blurred. "Victor, and now I find out I have a daughter." His voice broke on the word. "A 3-year-old daughter who doesn't know me, who's been living her whole life without me, and it's my fault, because I was the monster you ran from." "You weren't a monster." "Wasn't I?" He looked at her, and she saw the self-loathing there, the guilt. "You were terrified enough to disappear, terrified enough to raise our child alone rather than risk letting me near her. That's not the mark of a good man, Lena." "No," she agreed softly. "But maybe it's the mark of someone who could become one." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Are you saying you believe me? That I've changed?" "I'm saying I don't know." Lena wrapped her arms tighter around herself. "I want to believe you, Victor, but I spent 4 years building walls to keep you out. I can't just tear them down because you say you're different." "Then let me prove it." He took a step closer, stopped when she tensed. "Give me a chance to show you. Let me be part of Maya's life. Let me prove that I'm not the man you ran from. And if I say no?" Pain flashed across his face. "Then I'll walk away. I won't force my way into your life, Lena. I won't control you or threaten you or manipulate you. If you tell me to leave, I'll leave." "Just like that?" "Just like that." His voice was steady, but she could see the effort it cost him. "I love you enough to let you go if that's what you need. I love Maya enough to stay away if that's what's best for her, even if it kills me." Lena stared at him, searching for the lie, the manipulation, but all she saw was honesty, raw, painful honesty. "I need time," she said finally. "I need to think." "How much time?" "I don't know, more than an hour in a park." She ran a hand through her hair. "This is my daughter's life we're talking about, Victor. I won't just throw you into it without being sure." "I understand." He nodded slowly. "But while you're thinking, there's something you need to know." The shift in his tone made her stomach drop. "What?" "You said you came back to Chicago because your mother is sick. How many people knew you were coming?" What does that have to do with anything?" "How many people, Lena?" His voice had that edge now, that cold calculation she remembered. "Who knew you'd be here?" "Just my mom, and her neighbor maybe. I didn't exactly announce it. She frowned. Why? Victor pulled out his phone, unlocked it, and showed her a photo. It was grainy, taken from a distance, but Lena recognized herself immediately, walking down a street she'd been on just yesterday, with Maya. Someone had been following them. Her blood went cold. Where did you get this? It was sent to me this morning. No message, no demands, just this photo. His jaw tightened. Someone knows you're back, Lena. Someone knows about Maya, and they wanted to make sure I knew, too. Who? But even as she asked, she saw the answer in his face. No, you said you were out. You said you left that life behind. I did, but not everyone was happy about it. He put the phone away, his expression grim. There are people who think I owe them, people who lost money, power, connections when I walked away. And if they know about you, about Maya, they'll use us against you. Lena's legs felt weak. They'll hurt her to get to you. I won't let that happen. Victor's voice was steel. But you need to understand the situation. You came back to Chicago thinking you were safe, thinking I'd never find you, but someone else found you first. And whoever they are, they're watching. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was being paranoid, but the photo didn't lie. Someone had been following them. Someone knew. What do I do? The question came out small, frightened. You let me protect you. Victor stepped closer, his presence solid and reassuring despite everything. Both of you, until we figure out who's behind this and neutralize the threat. I don't need your protection. Yes, you do. His voice gentled. I know you're strong, Lena. I know you've survived on your own for 4 years, but this isn't something you can run from. These people won't stop just because you leave town. They'll follow you. They'll wait. And when they make their move, you'll be alone. And if I let you help, what then? I become exactly what I ran from, a prisoner in your world? No. Victor's eyes were steady, certain. You become someone I keep safe while I dismantle theirs. There's a difference. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to grab Maya and run back to Oregon and pretend none of this was happening. But she'd spent 4 years running, and it had brought her right back here, to the man she'd fled, to the danger she'd tried to escape, to the truth she'd been avoiding. I need to talk to my mother, she said finally. I need to get Maya somewhere safe. Bring them to my apartment, both of them. When she started to protest, he held up a hand. It's secure, Lena. No one knows about it except me. And it's big enough for all of you to have your own space. You don't have to trust me. You just have to trust that I'll do anything to keep Maya safe. This is insane. I know. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. But when has anything between us ever been sane? He had a point. Lena closed her eyes, weighing her options. She could run again, take Maya, and disappear into another small town, another quiet life, but whoever was watching them would follow. And next time, Victor might not be there to warn her. Or she could stay. Face the danger head on. Let the man she'd run from become the shield she'd tried to build on her own. 1 week, she said, opening her eyes. I'll give you 1 week to prove you're different, to prove you can protect us without controlling us. And if at any point I feel like we're in more danger with you than without you, we're gone. Fair enough. Victor nodded. 1 week. And you stay away from Maya until I'm sure this is safe. I won't have her caught in the crossfire. That one hurt him. She saw it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his hands clenched at his sides. But he nodded. Okay. Whatever you need. Lena pulled out her phone, already texting her mother. I'll pack some things and meet you at your place in 2 hours. Send me the address. I'll send a car. I'll take a cab. Lena, a cab, Victor. She met his eyes, firm. I'm doing this on my terms, not yours. He looked like he wanted to argue, but instead he just pulled out his phone and typed something. A second later, her phone buzzed with an address. 2 hours, he confirmed. I'll be waiting. He turned to leave, then stopped. Lena? Yeah. Thank you. His voice was rough with emotion. For giving me a chance, for trusting me enough to let me try. I'm not trusting you, she corrected. I'm trusting that you love Maya enough to keep her safe. There's a difference. I know. He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw everything he wasn't saying written in his eyes. But I'll take what I can get. Then he was gone, walking away through the drizzle, his figure disappearing into the gray afternoon. Lena stood there for a long time, her phone in her hand, the address burning on the screen. She'd run from Victor Hale once to protect her daughter. Now she was running straight back to him for the same reason. The irony wasn't lost on her, neither was the terror. But as she headed back to her mother's house to pack their lives into suitcases once again, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made either the best decision of her life, or the worst. Only time would tell which. Victor's apartment was nothing like the penthouse Lena remembered. That place had been all glass and steel and sharp edges, a monument to power built 50 stories above the city. This was different, quieter. A converted loft in River North with exposed brick walls, hardwood floors worn smooth by time, and windows that looked out over the Chicago River instead of down at it. Lena stood in the doorway with her mother and Maya, 3 suitcases between them, and felt the weight of her decision settle over her like a coat. Victor was waiting in the main room, hands in his pockets, careful to keep his distance. He'd changed into a plain gray Henley and jeans, and the casual clothes made him look younger somehow. More human. Less like the crime lord she remembered, and more like just a man trying not to scare the people standing in his doorway. "Come in," he said quietly. "Please." Maya was already pulling away from Lena's hand, her eyes wide as she took in the space. "Mama, look how big it is!" "Maya, wait!" But her daughter was already exploring, her rain boots squeaking on the hardwood as she ran toward the windows. Lena's mother, Carol, stepped forward with the sharp, assessing gaze of someone who'd raised a daughter alone and didn't trust easily. She was thin from the illness, her face drawn, but her spine was steel. "So you're Victor Hale," she said, her voice cool. "Yes, ma'am." Victor met her gaze steadily. "Thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy." "Easy?" Carol's laugh was bitter. "My daughter disappears for 4 years with my granddaughter, and now she's back standing in the apartment of a man she ran from. No, Mr. Hale, this isn't easy." "Mom," Lena started. "It's okay." Victor's voice was calm. "She has every right to be angry. You both do." Carol studied him for a long moment, and Lena saw her mother doing what she'd always done, looking past the surface to the truth beneath. Whatever she found there must have surprised her, because her expression softened slightly. "Lena says you've changed," Carol said, "that you're not the man you were." "I'm not." "Prove it." She crossed her arms. "Because if you hurt my daughter or my granddaughter, I don't care what kind of power you used to have. I will make your life hell." A ghost of a smile crossed Victor's face. "I believe you." "Good." Carol turned to Lena. "Which room is mine?" "I need to lie down." Victor gestured toward a hallway. "Second door on the left. There's a private bathroom, and anything you need should be in the closet. If not, let me know." Carol nodded and moved down the hall without another word, leaving Lena alone with Victor and the sound of Maya's excited chatter echoing from the windows. The silence stretched between them, heavy with 4 years of absence and all the things they hadn't said. "She's protective," Lena said finally. "She should be." Victor's eyes were on Maya, watching her press her hands against the glass. "You both should be. I haven't earned your trust yet." "No, you haven't." Lena set down her suitcase, suddenly exhausted. "Where do Maya and I sleep?" "Master bedroom. It has the most space and its own bathroom. I'll take the couch." "Victor, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." His voice was firm. "You're here because I asked you to be. Because you're in danger. The least I can do is make sure you're comfortable." Lena wanted to argue, but she was too tired. The adrenaline from earlier had worn off, leaving her hollow and shaky. "Okay, thank you." Victor picked up 2 of the suitcases without asking and headed down the hall. Lena followed, Maya running ahead of them, already claiming the space as her own. The bedroom was spacious and simple, with a large bed covered in soft gray linens and more of those floor-to-ceiling windows. Maya immediately climbed onto the bed and started bouncing. "Maya, shoes off first," Lena said automatically. "But Mama, shoes off." Maya pouted but obeyed, kicking off her rain boots and leaving them in a pile by the door. Victor set down the suitcases, his eyes following Maya's every movement with an intensity that made Lena's chest ache. "Can I talk to her?" he asked quietly. "Just for a minute?" Lena hesitated. She'd told him to stay away from Maya until she was sure it was safe, but watching the hunger in his eyes, the desperate need to connect with the daughter he'd just discovered, she couldn't bring herself to say no. "5 minutes," she said, "and I'm staying." "Fair enough." Victor moved to the edge of the bed, sitting carefully as if afraid he might break something. Maya stopped bouncing and plopped down in front of him, cross-legged, her expression serious. "Are you really my daddy?" she asked. The question hit like a punch. Victor's throat worked, and when he spoke, his voice was rough. "Yes, sweetheart, I am." "Why weren't you there before?" Lena's heart stopped. She started to intervene, to deflect, but Victor held up a hand. "That's a good question," he said, "and you deserve an honest answer. The truth is, I didn't know about you. Your mama left before I knew she was going to have a baby, and that's my fault, because I wasn't the kind of person she felt safe telling." Maya frowned, thinking this over. "Were you mean?" "Sometimes, yes. I made choices that hurt people, and your mama was scared that those choices would hurt you too, so she left to keep you safe. But you're not mean now?" "I'm trying not to be." Victor's smile was sad. "I'm trying to be the kind of daddy you deserve, but that takes time." Maya studied him with those storm gray eyes, so much like his own. Then she reached out and took his hand, her small fingers curling around his much larger ones. "Mama says everybody makes mistakes," she said solemnly. "And if you're sorry and you try to be better, that's what matters." Victor's eyes closed, and Lena saw his shoulders shake slightly. When he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. "Your mama's very smart," he said hoarsely. "I know," Maya grinned. "She's the smartest person in the whole world." Despite everything, Lena felt herself smile. Victor caught her eye over Maya's head, and something passed between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of understanding. Then Maya yawned big and wide, and Lena realized how late it had gotten. "Okay, baby, time for bed," she said, moving forward. "But I'm not tired," Maya protested, even as her eyes drooped. "Yes, you are. Say goodnight to Victor." Maya's face fell. "Does he have to leave?" "He'll be right here," Victor said quickly. "Just in the other room. I'm not going anywhere, I promise." "Really?" "Really." He squeezed her hand gently, then let go and stood. "Sweet dreams, Maya." "Night, Daddy." The word hit him visibly. He stood there for a moment, drinking in the sight of her, then turned and walked out before Lena could see if those tears fell. She got Maya into pajamas and tucked her in, her daughter already half asleep before her head hit the pillow. Lena sat beside her for a long time, stroking her hair, watching her breathe. Her daughter. Her whole world. The reason she'd run and the reason she'd come back. And now Victor was part of that world too, whether Lena was ready or not. When Maya's breathing had deepened into sleep, Lena slipped out of the room and found Victor in the kitchen. He was making tea, his movements precise and controlled, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "She's asleep," Lena said quietly. Victor nodded, pouring hot water into 2 mugs. "Chamomile okay?" "Yeah, thanks." They stood on opposite sides of the kitchen island, the steam rising between them like a barrier. Victor wrapped his hands around his mug, but didn't drink, his gaze fixed on something Lena couldn't see. "She called me Daddy," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know. I have a daughter who calls me Daddy, and I've known about her for less than 12 hours. He looked up, and the raw emotion in his eyes nearly undid her. "How do I do this, Lena? How do I be what she needs when I don't even know where to start?" "You just be there," Lena said. "You show up. You keep your promises. You love her even when it's hard. That's all any parent can do." "What if I mess it up? What if I hurt her without meaning to?" "Then you apologize and do better next time." She took a sip of tea, the warmth spreading through her chest. "Nobody gets it right all the time, Victor. Not even me." He was quiet for a moment, absorbing that. Then, "Thank you." "For what?" "For letting me talk to her, for not shutting me out completely. His voice cracked. For giving me a chance to know my daughter. Lena set down her mug, her hands trembling. Don't thank me yet. We still have a week to get through, and I meant what I said. If this gets too dangerous, we're gone. I know. Victor straightened, and she saw the shift happen, the vulnerability tucking itself away behind layers of control, which is why we need to talk about security. The word sent a chill down her spine. Security. Someone sent me that photo, Lena. Someone wants me to know they've found you, and until I figure out who and why, we need to take precautions. What kind of precautions? Victor pulled out his phone and brought up a series of images. Lena recognized the building's entrance, the hallway outside the apartment, different angles of the street below. I have cameras on every entrance and exit, he said. The building has security, but I've also got my own people watching the perimeter. No one gets in or out without me knowing. Your own people, Lena's voice was flat. I thought you were out of that life. I am. These are legitimate security professionals. Former military, fully licensed, completely clean. He met her eyes. I'm not taking chances with your safety, but I'm not using dirty methods to protect you either. Lena wanted to believe him, but the line between protection and control was so thin, and she'd seen Victor blur it before. What about when we leave the apartment? She asked. Maya has to go outside eventually. She can't be locked up. We'll have someone with you whenever you go out, discreet but present. You mean a bodyguard? I mean protection. Victor's jaw tightened. I know how this sounds. I know it feels like I'm trying to control you, but someone is watching you, Lena. Someone dangerous enough that they think they can use you against me. I need you to take this seriously. I am taking it seriously. Her voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. But I also know what it's like to live in a cage, Victor. I did it for 2 years before I ran, and I won't do it again. This isn't a cage, isn't it? Cameras, guards, people watching my every move. How is that different from before? Because before I was keeping you locked away because I was selfish and possessive and terrified of losing you. His voice was raw now, honest. Now I'm trying to keep you alive. There's a difference. Lena closed her eyes, trying to breathe through the panic rising in her chest. I need air. Lena, I need air, Victor. Just give me a minute. She walked to the windows, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. Below, the city stretched out in a grid of lights, beautiful and indifferent. Somewhere out there, someone was watching, waiting, planning. And she'd walked right back into their crosshairs. Victor's reflection appeared in the glass beside her. He stood a careful distance away, not touching, just present. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm pushing too hard. Old habits. You think? But there was no heat in it. Lena was too tired to be angry. I'm trying to keep you safe, but I keep forgetting that you don't trust me to do it without taking over your life. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I don't know how to protect people without controlling them. That's all I ever learned. Then you need to learn something new. Lena turned to face him. Because I won't live in fear, Victor. Not of whoever's out there, and not of you. What do you need from me? The question was simple, direct. Tell me what you need, and I'll do it. Lena thought about it, really thought. What did she need? To feel safe, yes, but also to feel free, to make her own choices, to know that staying here was her decision, not his. I need you to ask, not tell, she said finally. I need you to give me information and let me make my own choices about what to do with it. And I need you to respect those choices even when you disagree with them. Victor nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. Can you? I'll try. He smiled wryly. I'll probably mess it up sometimes, but I'll try. It wasn't a promise of perfection, but it was honest, and right now honesty was all Lena had to hold on to. The photo you showed me earlier, she said, changing the subject. Do you know who sent it? Not yet, but I have people looking into it. He pulled out his phone again, brought up the image. It was sent from a burner phone, no identifying information, but the angle suggests it was taken from across the street, probably with a telephoto lens. So, someone professional, or someone with resources. Victor's expression darkened. There are 3 people I can think of who might do this. All of them have reason to want leverage over me. Who? Marcus Chen. He ran the gambling operations on the south side before I took over. When I walked away, he tried to reclaim his territory, but the power structure had changed. He lost a lot of money. Lena's stomach twisted. He blames you. He does. Second is Isabel Moretti. The name hit like ice water. Your fiancé. Ex-fiancé. Victor's voice was careful. We were never engaged, Lena. It was an arrangement between families, nothing more. Does she know that? She should. I made it very clear when I broke things off 3 years ago. But there was something in his voice, some hesitation that made Lena's instincts flare. But, she pressed. But Isabel doesn't take rejection well. She's called me a few times over the years, tried to arrange meetings. I've ignored all of it, but... He stopped, jaw tightening. But what, Victor? But 2 weeks ago, she showed up at my office, said she'd heard I was looking for someone, asked if she could help. Lena's blood went cold. You have an office. I thought you were out of business. I am. I run a legitimate security consulting firm now. Completely legal, mostly boring. But Isabel has connections. She would have heard if I was making inquiries about you. So she knows you've been looking for me. She knows I've been looking for someone. I never mentioned you by name. Victor set down his phone, his expression grim. But if she did some digging, if she connected the dots, she could have found me first and used the information to get close to you. Lena's mind raced. Who's the third person? Thomas Volkov, Russian mob connections, now legitimate, or as legitimate as people like us ever get. He lost a weapons deal when I shut down my operations. Cost him millions. And any of these people could have sent the photo. Yes, Victor met her eyes. But my money's on Isabel. Why? Because Marcus and Thomas would have made demands by now. They'd use you as leverage directly. Threats, ransom, something concrete. Isabel's style is more subtle. She'd want me to know she has information, that she's watching, without tipping her hand too early. Lena's hands were shaking. She set down her mug before she dropped it. What does she want? Me. The word was simple, brutal. She's always wanted me. And she doesn't understand that I'm not available. Because you're still in love with me? The question hung in the air between them, dangerous and loaded. Victor could have deflected, could have made it about Maya, about responsibility. But instead he looked at Lena with those storm-gray eyes and told her the truth. Yes, he said quietly. I never stopped. Lena's breath caught. She'd known, on some level. But hearing him say it out loud was different, harder. It made this all real in a way it hadn't been before. Victor, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm not expecting you to feel the same way. I need you to know. Whatever happens, whatever you decide after this week, that's the truth. I love you. I've loved you since the day you walked into my office 4 years ago with that ridiculous optimism and those eyes that saw right through me. And I'll love you for the rest of my life, even if you never feel the same way again. Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stand there and absorb the weight of his words. I need to check on Maya, she said finally, the words coming out strangled. Victor nodded, stepping back. Of course. She fled down the hall, her heart hammering, and slipped into the bedroom where her daughter slept peacefully, unaware of the chaos surrounding her. Lena stood there in the dark, watching Maya breathe, and tried to remember why she'd run in the first place. Because Victor was dangerous, because his world was violent, because she couldn't raise a child in the shadows. Except he wasn't in that world anymore. And the danger had found them anyway. And the man standing in his kitchen, laying his heart bare, was nothing like the one she'd run from. Lena pressed her hands to her face, trying to hold herself together. She'd built her entire life around the decision to leave Victor. Her identity, her choices, her carefully constructed walls, all of it was predicated on the belief that staying with him would have been wrong. But what if she'd been wrong? What if the man she'd run from and the man trying to protect her now were two completely different people? What if she'd wasted 4 years running from a ghost? A soft knock on the doorframe made her turn. Victor stood there, backlit by the hallway light, his expression uncertain. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I shouldn't have said that. Not now, not like this. You have enough to deal with without me putting my feelings on you. No, it's... Lena stopped, not sure what she was trying to say. It's okay. It's not. He leaned against the doorframe, careful not to enter the room. You came here for protection, not a confession. I'll keep my distance, professionally. Victor, you don't have to... Yes, I do. His voice was firm. You asked me to respect your choices and give you space. I'm doing that. Whatever else I feel, it doesn't matter right now. Keeping you and Maya safe is the only thing that matters. He was giving her exactly what she'd asked for. Distance, respect, control over her own decisions. So why did it feel like a loss? Okay, she said softly. Thank you. Victor nodded and turned to go. But Lena's voice stopped him. Victor? Yeah? I don't... She stopped, searching for words. I don't know how I feel about you, about any of this, but I'm glad you told me, even if the timing's terrible. A small smile crossed his face. The timing's always been terrible with us. Yeah, it has. He left, and Lena was alone with her sleeping daughter and the ruins of every certainty she'd built over the past 4 years. She climbed into bed beside Maya, pulling her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. This, at least, was real. Solid. No matter what happened with Victor, no matter what dangers were waiting outside these walls, Maya was hers, her daughter, her world. But as Lena closed her eyes and tried to sleep, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Victor had looked at Maya, the raw love in his eyes, the desperate need to be part of her life. And she couldn't stop thinking about his words. I never stopped loving you. Sleep was a long time coming. When Lena woke the next morning, sunlight was streaming through the windows and Maya was gone. Panic shot through her before she heard the sound of laughter from the main room, Maya's high, delighted giggle and Victor's deeper chuckle. She found them in the kitchen. Maya was perched on the counter in her pajamas, her hair a wild tangle of curls, watching Victor make pancakes. He tied one of his own shirts around her like an apron, the fabric swallowing her small frame, and she was covered in flour. Mama! Maya spotted her and waved. Daddy's teaching me to make pancakes! Lena's heart stuttered at the casual use of the word daddy at the domestic tableau in front of her. Victor looked up, a smudge of flour on his cheek, and the softness in his eyes made something crack open in her chest. Morning, he said. I hope you don't mind. She woke up early and I heard her wandering around, so I thought, it's fine. Lena's voice came out hoarse. She cleared her throat. It's good. Thank you. We're making chocolate chip pancakes, Maya announced proudly. With extra chips because Daddy says that's the only way to do it. Is that so? Victor shrugged, unapologetic. If you're going to make pancakes, make them right. Despite everything, Lena felt herself smile. This man, this dangerous, complicated man, was making chocolate chip pancakes with her daughter like it was the most natural thing in the world. Where's my mom? She asked. Still sleeping. I checked on her an hour ago. She seemed peaceful. Victor flipped a pancake expertly. There's coffee if you want it. Fresh pot. Lena poured herself a cup and sat at the island, watching them work. Victor was patient with Maya, letting her pour the batter even when half of it ended up on the counter, showing her how to know when to flip by watching for bubbles. He was good at this, she realized. The teaching, the gentleness. Like he'd been waiting his whole life for the chance to be someone's father. The thought made her chest ache. They ate together at the kitchen table, Maya chattering about her rabbit and her favorite color and 100 other things that 4-year-olds find fascinating. Victor listened to every word like she was revealing the secrets of the universe, asking questions, making her laugh. Lena sat there drinking her coffee and felt the walls she'd built start to crack. This was what she'd run from, this possibility, this dangerous hope that maybe, just maybe, they could be a family. But hope was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not with someone watching them, not with Isabel Moretti or Marcus Chen or Thomas Volkov waiting in the shadows. As if summoning the thought, Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression shifted, went hard and cold in a way that made Lena's stomach drop. What is it? She asked. Victor's eyes met hers across the table. I need to make a call. Can you... He gestured to Maya. Yeah, of course. Lena stood, her pulse racing. Come on, baby, let's go brush your teeth. But I'm not done with breakfast. Now, Maya. Something in her tone must have registered because Maya slid off her chair without further argument. Lena led her down the hall, her whole body tense, straining to hear Victor's voice. He was speaking quietly, too low for her to make out words. But the tone was unmistakable. Controlled fury wrapped around something that sounded like fear. By the time Lena got Maya settled with cartoons in the bedroom and made it back to the kitchen, Victor was off the phone. He was standing by the windows, his hands braced on the glass, his whole body radiating tension. What happened? Lena asked. Victor turned, and the look on his face made her blood run cold. That was my head of security, he said. Someone tried to access the building's service entrance 20 minutes ago. Used a stolen keycard. Would have made it inside if my people hadn't caught them. Who was it? We don't know yet. They ran before security could grab them. But Lena... He paused, his jaw working. They were carrying this. He held up his phone. On the screen was a photo of a stuffed rabbit. Brown, worn, missing one ear. Exactly like the one Maya carried everywhere. Lena's legs went weak. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. That's Mr. Hops. How did they... They've been watching closely enough to know what Maya carries. Closely enough to replicate it. Victor's voice was deadly calm, but she could see the rage burning beneath. This wasn't random, Lena. This was a message. What kind of message? The kind that says, we can get to your daughter anytime we want. He set down the phone, his hands clenching into fists. I'm moving you. Today. Somewhere safer. No. The word came out sharp, automatic. You said we'd make decisions together. Lena, someone just tried to break into this building with a replica of Maya's toy. This isn't up for debate. Everything's up for debate when it's my daughter's safety. Lena's voice was shaking but firm. You said you'd ask, not tell, so ask me. Victor stared at her and she saw him wrestling with himself, the old instinct to command warring with the promise he'd made. Finally, he took a breath. I'm asking you to let me move you somewhere more secure, he said, each word careful. Somewhere with better protection, where we can control who gets close. Please. Where? I have a safe house outside the city, fully staffed, completely isolated. No one knows about it except me and 2 people I'd trust with my life. How long would we be there? Until I neutralize the threat. His eyes were steady on hers. However long that takes. Lena thought about it, her mind racing. She didn't want to run again, didn't want to uproot Maya from the small stability they'd found. But someone had just tried to get into the building carrying her daughter's toy. Someone who knew exactly what would frighten her most. I need to call my mom, she said finally. She should be part of this decision. Victor nodded. Of course. Carol was awake when Lena went to her room, sitting up in bed with a book. She looked better this morning, some color back in her face, and Lena felt a surge of relief. At least something was going right. Mom, we need to talk. By the time Lena finished explaining, Carol's expression had gone from concern to fury. We're leaving, she said flatly. Today. Back to Oregon, back to... We can't. Lena sat on the edge of the bed. Whoever this is, they'll follow us. Victor has resources to protect us. We don't. Victor is the reason we're in danger in the first place. Maybe, or maybe I am, just by existing. Lena ran her hands through her hair. I don't know anymore, Mom, but I know that running didn't work the first time, and it won't work now. Carol studied her daughter with those sharp, knowing eyes. You still love him. It wasn't a question. I don't... Lena stopped. I don't know what I feel, but Maya deserves to know her father. And he deserves a chance to protect his daughter, even if it means putting yourselves in his hands. Even then. Carol was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed, deep and tired. Okay, we'll go to this safe house, but Lena, if this goes wrong, if he turns out to be the man you ran from, promise me you'll leave. I promise. They packed quickly, efficiently, taking only what they'd need. Victor had already arranged transportation, an unmarked SUV with tinted windows and a driver he trusted. He loaded their bags himself, his movements quick and precise, and Lena saw the old Victor in the way he moved, the crime boss who'd commanded an empire with ruthless efficiency. It should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel oddly safe. They left within the hour, Maya buckled between Lena and Carol in the back seat, Victor in the front beside the driver. The city slid past outside the windows, familiar streets giving way to suburbs and then open highway. Maya fell asleep against Lena's shoulder, worn out from the early morning and the excitement. Carol stared out the window, her expression unreadable, and Lena sat there between her mother and her daughter, watching the back of Victor's head, and wondered what the hell she was doing. Trusting a man she'd run from, moving to a safe house she'd never seen, putting her daughter's life in the hands of someone who used to solve problems with violence. But when Victor turned to check on them, when his eyes met hers with such fierce protectiveness, Lena felt something shift inside her. Maybe trust wasn't about being certain. Maybe it was about taking a leap and hoping someone would catch you. "How much further?" she asked quietly. "Another hour," Victor said. "Try to rest." Lena closed her eyes and leaned her head back, Maya's warm weight against her side, and tried not to think about what came next. Tried not to think about Isabel Moretti or Marcus Chen or Thomas Volkov. Tried not to think about the fact that someone out there wanted to use her daughter as leverage. And tried very hard not to think about the way her heart had jumped when Victor said, "I never stopped loving you." 1 week, she'd promised him. 4 days left to see if the man she'd run from could become the man she needed. 4 days to figure out if trust was even possible. Outside the window, the city disappeared behind them, and Lena felt like she was falling, into danger, into hope, into something she couldn't name. All she could do was hold on to Maya and hope Victor caught them both before they hit the ground. The safe house appeared through the trees like something out of a dream or a fortress, set on 20 acres of wooded land 2 hours outside Chicago. It was a modern structure of glass and stone that somehow managed to look both elegant and impenetrable. High walls surrounded the perimeter, cameras visible at regular intervals, and Lena counted at least 3 security personnel before they even reached the gate. Victor's driver spoke into a comm system, and the heavy iron gate swung open silently. They drove up a winding driveway flanked by towering oaks, their bare branches stark against the gray winter sky. Maya stirred against Lena's shoulder, blinking awake. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep. "Somewhere safe, baby," Lena said, hoping it was true. The SUV pulled to a stop in front of the main entrance, and Victor was out before the engine died, opening Lena's door with a hand extended to help her out. She took it automatically, his grip warm and steady, and tried not to notice the way her pulse jumped at the contact. Carol climbed out on her own, her gaze sweeping the property with the sharp assessment of someone who'd learned to spot danger early. "This is quite the setup." "It needs to be," Victor said simply. He turned to Maya, who was rubbing her eyes and looking around with wide-eyed curiosity. "What do you think, sweetheart? Want to see inside?" Maya nodded, already reaching for his hand. The gesture was so natural, so unconscious, that Lena's throat tightened. 3 days. Her daughter had known her father for 3 days, and already she trusted him completely. The interior of the safe house was just as impressive as the exterior. Warm wood floors, high ceilings with exposed beams, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the woods. But Lena noticed the details Victor probably thought she'd miss. The reinforced door frames, the panic buttons discreetly placed on walls, the way every window had both regular glass and what looked like steel shutters that could be deployed at the touch of a button. This wasn't just a house. It was a bunker disguised as a luxury retreat. A woman appeared from what Lena assumed was the kitchen, mid-40s, athletic build, with short-cropped blonde hair and eyes that took in everything at once. She wore jeans and a sweater, but Lena recognized the bulge of a weapon at her hip. "This is Sarah," Victor said, "head of security here. Anything you need, she can help." Sarah nodded at them, her expression professional but not unfriendly. "Welcome. I've prepared the East Wing for you. 3 bedrooms, private sitting area, full bathroom. Mr. Hale thought you might appreciate some privacy." "Thank you," Lena said, though the formality of it all made her uncomfortable. This wasn't a vacation. This was protective custody, no matter how nice the accommodations. Sarah showed them to their rooms, pointing out security features as they went, Each bedroom had its own panic button. The windows were bulletproof. There were safe rooms on each floor, accessible through hidden doors that looked like ordinary walls. "Are we expecting to be attacked?" Carol asked dryly. "No, ma'am," Sarah replied, "but Mr. Hale believes in being prepared." "That's one word for it," Carol muttered. Maya, oblivious to the undercurrents, was already exploring her room, a space that Victor had clearly prepared specifically for her. There were books on the shelves, toys in a chest by the window, and art supplies laid out on a small table. Even Mr. Hops had a twin sitting on the bed, this one with both ears intact. "Mama, look!" Maya ran to the window, pressing her hands against the glass. "There's a swing set outside." Lena looked and saw an elaborate wooden play structure tucked into a clearing in the trees, complete with swings, a slide, and what looked like a small climbing wall. "When did you have time to set this up?" she asked Victor quietly. "I had it installed 2 years ago," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Just in case." The words hit her like a physical blow. 2 years ago. Before he knew Maya existed, before he had any reason to build a play structure at his safe house except the desperate hope that someday, somehow, he might need it. He'd been preparing for a child he didn't know he had, for a family he'd lost. "Victor," her voice broke. "I should let you get settled," he said quickly, already backing toward the door. "Sarah will bring up some lunch. If you need anything, just ask." He was gone before Lena could find words, leaving her standing in her daughter's new bedroom, staring at a swing set built on faith and heartbreak. Carol appeared in the doorway, her expression softer than Lena had seen it in days. "He really has changed, hasn't he?" "I don't know," Lena whispered. "Maybe. Or maybe he's just gotten better at hiding who he really is. Or maybe," Carol said gently, "you're afraid to believe he's changed because then you'd have to forgive yourself for leaving." The words struck deep, cutting through layers of justification and fear to the raw truth beneath. Lena had spent 4 years telling herself she'd done the right thing, that leaving had been necessary, that Victor was too dangerous, too controlling, too lost in his criminal world to ever be the man she needed. But if he'd changed, if he really had walked away from that life and rebuilt himself into someone worthy of being a father, then what did that say about her decision to run? "I need some air," Lena said. She found Victor on the back deck, leaning against the railing, staring out at the woods. The afternoon light filtered through the bare branches, casting long shadows across the snow-dusted ground. He didn't turn when she approached, but she saw his shoulders tense. "The play structure," she said. "Why?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Because I kept thinking about you, about what you might be doing, where you might be. And I thought, if you had a child, they'd need somewhere safe to play, somewhere they could be a kid without being afraid. You didn't know about Maya." "No, but I hoped." He turned to face her, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke her. "I hoped that somewhere out there you were building a life. Maybe with someone else, maybe alone. And I thought if I ever found you, if you ever came back, I wanted to have something to offer. Not money or power or any of the things I used to think mattered, just safety, a place where a child could be happy." Lena's vision blurred. "You built a swing set on hope. I built a lot of things on hope." His smile was sad. "This whole house, actually. Bought it 3 years ago, right after I walked away from everything. Told myself it was an investment, a backup plan. But really, I was building a place for you to come home to." "Victor, I can't—" She stopped, not sure what she was trying to say. "I can't be responsible for your hope. It's too much." "I'm not asking you to be." He took a step closer, careful not to crowd her. "I'm just being honest. You asked me once what I wanted, and I'm telling you. I want you and Maya to be safe. I want to be part of my daughter's life. And I want—" He broke off, jaw working. "I want the chance to prove that I'm not the man you ran from anymore." "You keep saying that, but what if you are?" Lena's voice shook. "What if underneath all this, the safe house, the legitimate business, the gentleness with Maya, you're still the same person who solved problems with violence? What happens when the threat is neutralized and we don't need your protection anymore? Do you just let us go?" Victor flinched like she'd hit him. "If that's what you want, yes." "I don't believe you." Then ask me. His voice was steady now, controlled. Ask me anything. Test me. Push me. Do whatever you need to do to believe that I mean what I say. Lena stared at him, this complicated, dangerous man who was offering her his heart like it was something fragile. And she realized that she did want to test him, wanted to find the crack in the facade, the moment where control would override respect and she could justify her fear. Tell me about Isabel Moretti, she said. Victor's expression shuddered. What do you want to know? Everything. Who is she? What did she mean to you, and why do you think she's the one behind this? He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Isabel's family has been in organized crime for 3 generations. Her father ran most of the North Side operations before I consolidated power. The engagement was his idea, a way to unite territories, strengthen alliances. I was 28 and stupid enough to think business arrangements were how empires were built. Did you love her? No. The answer was immediate, certain. I barely knew her. We had dinner a few times, attended events together. It was all performance. But Isabel... He stopped, his jaw tightening. Isabel wanted it to be real. She started talking about marriage like it was happening, making plans involving her family, and I let it go on too long because breaking it off would have caused problems I didn't want to deal with. Until you met me. Until I met you, he confirmed. And suddenly all those business arrangements and strategic alliances felt like cages. I ended things with Isabel 2 weeks after you started working for me. Told her it was over, that there would never be anything between us. How did she take it? Victor's laugh was bitter, about as well as you'd expect. She called me every name in the book, threatened to have her father come after me, swore she'd make me regret it. But I thought, once she cooled down, she'd move on, find someone else. That was 3 years ago, and she's still calling. Lena's stomach twisted. She's obsessed with you. She's obsessed with what I represented. Power, control, the ability to command a room with a word. He met Lena's eyes. She doesn't know who I actually am. She never did. But I did. You did, he said softly. You saw past all the performance to the person underneath, and you weren't impressed. Despite everything, Lena felt herself smile. You were arrogant and controlling and used to getting your way. I was, he agreed, and you called me on it. Every single time. Do you know how rare that was? How terrifying and exhilarating it was to be with someone who wouldn't let me hide behind power? Is that why you fell in love with me? Because I challenged you? I fell in love with you because you made me want to be better. His voice was raw. Because being around you made me realize how empty my life was. How hollow. I'd built this empire, commanded this respect, had everything I thought I wanted, and then you walked in with your ridiculous optimism and your refusal to be intimidated, and suddenly none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was being worthy of you. Lena's chest ached. She remembered that version of Victor, the one who'd started leaving work early to have dinner with her, who'd asked about her day like he actually cared, who'd looked at her like she was the most important thing in his world. She'd fallen in love with that man, the one who existed in the spaces between the violence and the power plays. But she'd also seen the other side, the cold fury when someone crossed him, the calculated cruelty he could deploy with surgical precision, the way he'd lock her in the penthouse for days at a time when he decided the streets were too dangerous. I saw you hurt people, she said quietly. I watched you give orders that ended lives. How do I reconcile that with the man making pancakes with our daughter? You don't. Victor's voice was steady. That man existed. Those things happened. I can't erase my past, Lena. All I can do is build something different in the present. And if Isabel forces you back into that world, if protecting us means becoming that man again, then I'll do what needs to be done. His eyes were hard now, unflinching. But I won't enjoy it, and I won't let it consume me the way it did before, because I have something to come back to now. Someone to come back to. Before Lena could respond, Sarah appeared in the doorway. Mr. Hale, you need to see this. The shift was instant. Victor's whole body went on alert, his expression hardening into something cold and focused. What is it? Security footage from the city apartment 30 minutes ago. They followed Sarah into a room that Lena hadn't seen before. A full security center with monitors covering every angle of the safe house and apparently Victor's apartment in the city. Sarah pulled up footage on the largest screen, and Lena's blood ran cold. A woman was standing in front of Victor's building, staring directly up at the camera. She was striking, dark hair, crimson lips, wearing a coat that probably cost more than Lena made in 6 months. And she was smiling. "Isabel," Victor said, his voice flat. The woman on screen raised her hand in a small wave, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. "She knows we left," Lena said, her voice shaking. "She knows we're not there. She's sending a message." Victor's jaw was tight. "She wants me to know she can find us whenever she wants." "Can she?" Carol's voice came from the doorway. She must have heard the commotion and come to investigate. "Can she find this place?" "No," Victor said, but Lena heard the slight hesitation. "This property is buried under so many shell corporations and legal barriers that it would take months to trace it back to me. And Isabel doesn't have that kind of patience." "What does she have?" Lena asked. Victor turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her stomach drop. "Connections. Money. And absolutely no moral compass when it comes to getting what she wants." "Which is you." "Which is me." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "She thinks if she can eliminate the competition, I'll come back to her. That's what this is about. Not revenge, not money. She wants to remove you from the equation, so I'll have no reason to stay out of the life." "Then let me talk to her," Lena said. "Absolutely not. Victor, if this is about me, let me handle it. I'll meet with her, explain that we're not together, that I'm not trying to No." The word was sharp, final. "You're not going anywhere near Isabel. She's dangerous, Lena. Unpredictable. The last person who got in her way ended up in the hospital with 3 broken ribs and a concussion. So what's your plan? Hide here forever? Wait for her to get bored and move on?" "My plan is to make it very clear that you and Maya are off limits." Victor's voice was cold now, the businessman she remembered. "I have leverage on Isabel. Information her family wouldn't want public. I've been avoiding using it because I didn't want to start a war. But if she's threatening my daughter, don't." Lena grabbed his arm. "Don't start something you can't control. That's exactly what she wants. To pull you back into that world. To make you choose between protecting us and staying clean." "She's already made that choice for me." "No, she hasn't." Lena's grip tightened. "There has to be another way. Something that doesn't involve threats and leverage and all the things you walked away from." Victor looked at her hand on his arm, then up at her face. "Like what?" "I don't know yet. But promise me you won't do anything until we figure it out together. Promise me, Victor." She saw the war in his eyes. The old instincts telling him to take control, to handle the threat the way he always had, warring with the promise he'd made to respect her choices. For a long moment she thought he'd refuse. Then he covered her hand with his own. "Okay, we figure it out together." "Thank you." Sarah cleared her throat. "Sir, there's one more thing. We intercepted a phone call to your office this morning. Someone asking questions about your current projects, who you're working with, whether you've taken on any new security details." "Who was calling?" "They didn't leave a name, but the number traces back to a burner phone purchased in Brighton Park." Victor swore under his breath. "That's Chen's territory." "So it might not be Isabel," Lena said. "It could be this Marcus Chen person you mentioned. Or they're working together." Victor's expression was grim. "Isabel has the motive, Chen has the muscle. If they've joined forces—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. Lena understood the implication. 2 enemies were exponentially more dangerous than 1. Carol spoke up from her position by the door. "So what do we do?" "We stay put," Victor said. "We let them search. They won't find us here. And the longer they look, the more frustrated they'll get. Frustrated people make mistakes." "And when they make those mistakes," Lena asked, "then we'll be ready." That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She'd put Maya to bed hours ago, sat with her until she drifted off, and then retreated to her own room. But sleep wouldn't come. Her mind kept replaying the footage of Isabel, that casual wave, the confidence of someone who knew she held all the cards. Finally, she gave up and padded down the hallway in her pajamas. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the heating system. She found Victor in the security room, sitting in front of the monitors, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the screens. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning around. How did you know it was me? Your footsteps. Carol's are heavier, Sarah's are completely silent. Yours have this particular rhythm. He glanced back at her, a small smile on his face. I've always been able to recognize you in a crowd. Lena moved into the room, wrapping her arms around herself. What are you looking for? Patterns. Anything unusual. Someone watching the perimeter, cars driving past too many times, movement in the woods. He gestured to the screen showing different angles of the property. Probably paranoid, but better paranoid than dead. Exactly. Lena studied him in the dim light. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, tension in every line of his body. When's the last time you slept? I don't remember. Victor, I'm fine. But even as he said it, he rubbed his eyes, betraying the lie. Lena made a decision. She pulled up a chair next to his and sat down. Then I'll keep you company. You don't have to do that. I know. She settled into the chair, her shoulder almost touching his. But I'm not sleeping anyway. Might as well be useful. They sat in silence for a while, watching the screen cycle through different camera angles. The woods were still, the perimeter quiet. It should have been peaceful. Instead, Lena felt like they were waiting for a storm. Tell me about Maya, Victor said suddenly. What was she like as a baby? The question caught Lena off guard. Why? Because I missed it. His voice was quiet, painful. I missed everything. Her first breath, her first cry, the first time she opened her eyes. I missed her learning to walk, learning to talk, her first word. I missed 3.5 years of my daughter's life, and I can't get that back. So tell me, please, help me know her. Lena's throat closed. She swallowed hard, blinking back tears. She was tiny, just over 6 pounds. The doctor said she was perfect, all 10 fingers and 10 toes, but she came out screaming like she was furious at the world. Victor's smile was sad, strong-willed from the start. You have no idea. Lena found herself smiling despite the ache in her chest. She didn't sleep through the night until she was 8 months old, just refused. I'd walk the floors with her for hours, singing every lullaby I could remember, and she'd just stare at me with those gray eyes like she was studying me. She has your determination and your stubbornness. Lena laughed softly. Her first word was no, not mama, not milk, just no, and she meant it. What else? So Lena told him about Maya's first steps taken while reaching for a butterfly in their tiny backyard, about the way she'd insist on wearing her yellow rain boots every day for 6 months straight, even in the summer, about her obsession with rabbits that led to Mr. Hops becoming her constant companion, about the time she'd tried to give a homeless man her dinner because he looked hungry, Mama. Victor listened to every word like she was reciting scripture, his eyes never leaving her face. And Lena realized this was its own kind of intimacy, sharing the pieces of their daughter's life, building a bridge across 4 years of absence with stories and memories. She sounds incredible, Victor said when Lena finally ran out of words. She is. She's the best thing I've ever done. You've done an amazing job with her, alone, under impossible circumstances. She's happy and healthy and kind, and that's all you. It's all us, Lena corrected softly. She has your eyes, your smile, the way you tilt your head when you're thinking. She's part of both of us, Victor, whether we were together or not. He was quiet for a moment. Then, do you regret it, having her? Never, not for a single second. Even though it meant doing it alone? Even though I wasn't there? Lena thought about those early days, the fear, the exhaustion, the overwhelming responsibility of keeping a tiny human alive with no help and no safety net. She thought about the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. The moments of doubt when she'd almost called Victor, almost told him, almost asked for help. I wish things had been different, she said finally. I wish you'd been the kind of man I could have told. But I don't regret Maya. And I don't regret keeping her safe, even if that meant keeping her from you. Fair enough? Victor's voice was rough. For what it's worth, I wish I'd been different too. I wish I'd been someone you could trust. You're becoming that person now. He looked at her sharply. You think so? I think you're trying, and that counts for something. They fell silent again, but this time it was comfortable. companionable, like they were two people who'd known each other in another life and were slowly remembering how to exist in the same space. "Can I ask you something?" Victor said eventually. "Okay. When you left, when you found out you were pregnant, did you ever consider telling me, even for a moment?" Lena closed her eyes, remembering that night. The positive test in her hand, the terror that had flooded through her, the desperate calculations she'd run in her head. "Yes," for about 30 seconds. "What changed your mind?" "I remembered the way you'd locked me in the penthouse the week before, the way you'd casually mentioned having someone killed over a business dispute, the way you'd told me I wasn't allowed to leave without security because the world was too dangerous." She opened her eyes and looked at him. "I imagined telling you I was pregnant, and all I could see was you building a bigger cage, a safer prison, and I couldn't do that to our child." Victor nodded slowly, like he'd expected the answer, but it still hurt to hear. "I would have, built that cage, locked you both away somewhere I thought you'd be safe. I wouldn't have given you a choice." "I know. But I wouldn't have done it to control you. I would have done it because the thought of losing you was worse than anything I could imagine. And the thought of losing a child," his voice broke. "I wouldn't have survived it. You're surviving it now." "Barely." He looked at her, and the rawness in his eyes was devastating. "Do you have any idea what it's like to know I have a daughter and I've missed every important moment of her life? To know that she existed for 3.5 years and I didn't even know? Every day I was searching for you. She was out there growing up without me, learning to walk without me, saying her first words without me there to hear them." "Victor, I'm not blaming you," he said quickly. "I'm not. You did what you thought was right. But Lena, it's killing me, knowing what I lost, what I can never get back." Lena reached out without thinking and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers immediately, desperately, like he was drowning and she was the only solid thing in the world. "You can't get the past back," she said softly, "but you can build a future. You can be there for every moment from now on. First day of school, first lost tooth, first heartbreak. All of it. If you want to be. If you'll let me. I'm letting you." The words came out before she could stop them, but as soon as she said them, Lena knew they were true. "I'm here, aren't I? In your safe house, trusting you to protect us, telling you stories about our daughter. I'm letting you in, Victor. The question is whether you're going to prove I'm right to do it." He lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, the gesture so tender it made her chest ache. "I won't let you down. Either of you. I swear it." "Don't swear, just do it." "Okay." He lowered her hand but didn't let go. "Okay?" They sat like that for a long time, hands linked, watching the monitors cycle through their endless surveillance. And somewhere in the quiet darkness of the safe house, with danger circling outside and the future uncertain, Lena felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of trust. And for now, that was enough. The attack came at dawn. Lena woke to the sound of alarms, loud and insistent, cutting through the quiet of the safe house like a knife. She was on her feet before her brain fully caught up, already moving toward Maya's room when Victor appeared in her doorway. "Stay here," he said, his voice hard and controlled. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me or Sarah." "What's happening?" "Someone triggered the perimeter sensors. Could be an animal, could be a person. Either way, I'm not taking chances." He was already moving down the hall, speaking into a comm unit clipped to his shirt. "Sarah, status." Lena couldn't hear the response, but she saw Victor's expression tighten. He glanced back at her. "Lock the door." Then he was gone, his footsteps silent despite his speed. Lena ran to Maya's room and found her sitting up in bed, wide-eyed and scared. "Mama, what's that noise?" "Just an alarm, baby. Everything's okay." Lena scooped her up, grabbed Mr. Hops, and carried her back to the master bedroom. She locked the door like Victor had ordered, then carried Maya into the bathroom and locked that door too. "Are we playing hide and seek?" Maya asked, her voice small. "Something like that." Lena set her down and knelt in front of her, trying to keep her voice calm. "We're going to stay very quiet in here for a little while, okay? Can you do that for me?" Maya nodded, clutching Mr. Hops to her chest. Carol appeared at the bathroom door. She must have come through the connecting door between their rooms. Her face was pale but composed. "What's going on?" "I don't know." Victor said to stay here and lock the doors. They huddled together in the bathroom, Maya between them, and waited. The alarms cut off suddenly, leaving behind a silence that was somehow worse. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. She pulled out her phone, checking for messages from Victor, but there was nothing. Minutes crawled by like hours. Then, finally, her phone buzzed. False alarm. Deer crossed the sensors, all clear. Lena sagged with relief, but something about the message felt off. The phrasing was too formal, too clean. Victor would have called, would have come back in person to tell them everything was okay. She showed the message to Carol, who frowned. "That doesn't sound like him." "No, it doesn't." They stayed in the bathroom, waiting until Lena heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, unfamiliar footsteps that made every instinct scream danger. "Mrs. Cross?" A man's voice, professional and calm. "Mr. Hale sent me to escort you to the safe room. There's been a security breach." Lena's blood went cold. She hadn't told anyone here her name was Cross. She'd been careful, using a fake name even with Sarah. The only person who knew her real name was Victor, which meant this wasn't one of Victor's people. She looked at Carol and saw her own fear reflected in her mother's eyes. Then she looked at Maya, who was watching her with complete trust, believing that Mama would keep her safe. Lena made a decision. She grabbed Carol's hand and mouthed one word: "Run." Then she unlocked the bathroom door, threw it open, and came face to face with the intruder. The man in the hallway was broad-shouldered and professional-looking, wearing tactical gear that could have belonged to legitimate security. But his eyes gave him away, flat and calculating, the kind of eyes that had seen violence and delivered it without hesitation. Lena didn't give him time to react. She threw herself forward, slamming the bathroom door into his face with all her weight. He stumbled back with a grunt of pain, and Lena grabbed Maya and ran. "Carol, go!" she screamed. They bolted down the hallway, Lena's bare feet slapping against the hardwood. Maya clutched tight against her chest. Behind them, the man cursed and gave chase. Carol was ahead of them, moving faster than Lena would have thought possible for someone recovering from illness, heading for the panic room Sarah had shown them on the first floor. They made it to the stairs before Lena heard the second set of footsteps, someone coming up from below, cutting off their escape route. "This way." Carol veered left toward the west wing, and Lena followed blindly. They crashed through a door into what looked like a library, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and leather furniture that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Carol slammed the door and locked it, then grabbed a heavy armchair and shoved it against the door. "Help me!" Lena set Maya down and helped her mother pile furniture against the door. Chairs, side tables, anything they could move. Behind them, Maya was crying, silent tears streaming down her face as she clutched Mr. Hops. "Mama, I'm scared." "I know, baby, I know." Lena's voice was shaking. "But we're going to be okay. Daddy's coming. He's going to keep us safe." She hoped it was true. The door handle rattled. Then a voice came through, calm and female and utterly terrifying in its composure. "Mrs. Cross, this is getting tedious. Open the door and no one needs to get hurt." "Isabel." Lena's blood turned to ice. She grabbed her phone with trembling hands and dialed Victor. It rang once, twice, 3 times. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. "He can't help you," Isabel called through the door. "Victor's a bit tied up at the moment. Quite literally, actually. I have 4 men downstairs making sure he stays put while we have our little chat." "What do you want?" Lena forced the words out. "Just to talk. Woman to woman. About the man we both love." "I'm calling the police." Isabel laughed, and the sound was like broken glass. "Go ahead. By the time they get here, this will all be over, one way or another." Carol was already on her phone dialing 911, whispering urgent details to the dispatcher, but Lena knew Isabel was right. They were 45 minutes from the nearest town. Help wouldn't come in time. "What did you do to Victor?" Lena demanded. "Nothing permanent? Yet." Isabel's voice was almost conversational. "Though I must say he's much less intimidating tied to a chair. All that power, all that control, and in the end he's just a man who can bleed like anyone else." Rage flooded through Lena, hot and consuming. If you hurt him, you'll what? You're locked in a room with your mother and a child, surrounded by my people. You have no leverage here, Lena. I hold all the cards. Then what do you want from me? I want you to disappear. Isabel's voice went cold. I want you to take that child and go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. I want you to leave Victor alone so he can return to the world where he belongs. With me. He doesn't belong with you, Lena shot back. He never did. That's where you're wrong. Something heavy hit the door, a shoulder maybe, testing the barricade. Victor needs someone who understands his nature, someone who won't flinch from the darkness in him. You made him weak, Lena. You made him think he could be something he's not. And when you ran, you nearly destroyed him. I saved him. You abandoned him. The composure cracked, raw fury bleeding through. He spent 3 years tearing himself apart looking for you, building a life he thought you'd want, becoming someone he thought would be worthy of you. And for what? So you could show up with his child and make him grovel for scraps of your attention? That's not what happened. Isn't it? Another hit against the door. The barricade shifted slightly. He's told you he loves you, hasn't he? Begged for a chance to prove himself? And you've kept him at arm's length, using his daughter as leverage, making him jump through hoops like a trained dog. It's pathetic. Lena's hands were shaking with fury now. You don't know anything about us. I know Victor deserves better than someone who runs when things get difficult. I know he needs a partner who won't judge him for his past. And I know that you're standing between him and the life he should have had. The door shuddered as something heavier hit it, a battering ram maybe. The furniture barricade wouldn't hold much longer. Carol grabbed Lena's arm. The windows. Can we break them? Lena ran to the nearest window and looked out. They were on the second floor, too high to jump safely with Maya. But there was a ledge below, and beyond that, a balcony on the first floor. If they could get down to the ledge, they might be able to reach the balcony and get back inside on a different floor. It was insane. Dangerous. But staying here meant facing Isabel and whatever she had planned. Help me open this, Lena said. The window was old-fashioned, the kind that slid up, but it was locked. Carol grabbed a heavy bookend and slammed it against the lock. Once, twice, 3 times. The metal gave way with a crack, and the window slid open, letting in a rush of cold winter air. Behind them, the door splintered. Go! Lena shoved Carol toward the window. Take Maya. I'll be right behind you. Lena, now Mom. Carol grabbed Maya and climbed through the window onto the narrow ledge outside. Maya was sobbing, terrified, clinging to her grandmother. Lena turned back to see the door buckling under another assault, the barricade coming apart. She grabbed the bookend Carol had dropped and positioned herself between the door and the window. If Isabel came through, Lena would buy them time, whatever it took. The door burst open in an explosion of splinters and toppling furniture. The man from the hallway came through first, blood streaming from his nose where Lena had hit him with the door. Isabel followed, elegant even in tactical gear, her dark hair pulled back, her expression cold. That was foolish, Isabel said, surveying the damage. Then her eyes landed on the open window, on Carol and Maya visible on the ledge outside. And that's just stupid. You'll get them killed. Better than whatever you have planned. Isabel's smile was sharp. I'm not going to kill them. I'm not a monster, Lena. I just want you gone. Then you're going to be disappointed. Am I? Isabel pulled out a phone and held it up. On the screen was a video feed, Victor tied to a chair in what looked like the basement, blood trickling from a cut above his eye, 2 armed men standing behind him. Because it seems to me that you have a choice. You can leave quietly, go back to your quiet life in Oregon, and Victor lives, or you can keep fighting, and I'll have my people put a bullet in his head while you watch. Lena's world narrowed to that screen, to Victor's face. His eyes were unfocused, like he'd been hit hard, but he was breathing, alive. You're bluffing, Lena said, though her voice shook. Try me. Isabel's finger hovered over the phone. I can make the call right now. 1 word and he dies. Is that what you want? Mama! Maya's voice came from outside, high and terrified. Grandma's slipping. Lena spun to see Carol struggling to keep her balance on the icy ledge, one arm wrapped around Maya, the other scrabbling for purchase against the window frame. Her face was white, her breath coming in harsh gasps. Time seemed to split. Lena could see both paths laid out in front of her with terrible clarity. She could go to the window, help her mother and daughter, get them to safety, and Isabel would give the order and Victor would die. Or she could stay here, negotiate, try to buy time, and Carol and Maya would fall. There was no winning. No matter what she chose, someone she loved would pay the price. Then, from somewhere in the house came the sound of gunfire. Isabel's head snapped up, her expression shifting from triumph to confusion to rage in the space of a heartbeat. She spoke into a comm unit at her wrist. "Report. What's happening down there?" The response was drowned out by more gunfire, closer now, and the sound of men shouting. Isabel cursed and turned to the man beside her. "Go. Now." He ran from the room, weapon drawn. Isabel looked back at Lena, and for the first time there was something other than cold calculation in her eyes. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. "This isn't over," she said. Then she was gone, running down the hallway, leaving Lena alone with the sound of gunfire echoing through the safe house. Lena didn't hesitate. She ran to the window and grabbed Carol's arm, hauling her back inside with strength she didn't know she had. Maya tumbled in after her, and Lena scooped her up, checking frantically for injuries. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I'm okay, Mama. I'm okay." Maya was crying, her whole body shaking, but she was unhurt. Carol leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. "What's happening? Who's shooting?" "I don't know, but we need to get to the panic room. Now!" They ran back into the hallway, Lena carrying Maya, Carol right behind them. The gunfire had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow worse. Lena's mind raced. Had Isabel's people won? Was Victor dead? Or had someone else arrived? They made it to the main staircase and stopped short. Sarah was at the bottom, her weapon drawn, standing over two bodies in tactical gear. She looked up and saw them, and relief flooded her face. "Get down here. Now!" They scrambled down the stairs. Sarah positioned herself between them and the hallway, her eyes scanning for threats. "Are you hurt?" "No. Where's Victor?" "Basement. He's alive, but—" Sarah's jaw tightened. "They worked him over pretty good. I've got 2 of my people with him now. The rest are clearing the house." "How many of Isabel's people were there?" 6. "We've neutralized 4. The other 2 ran, including a woman matching Isabel Moretti's description." Sarah keyed her comm. "West perimeter, do you have eyes on the runners?" A crackle of static, then, "Negative. They had a vehicle waiting, gone before we could intercept." Sarah swore under her breath. "We need to move you to a more secure location. This house is compromised." "I need to see Victor," Lena said. "Ma'am, I need to see him. Now." Sarah looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Lena's expression must have convinced her. "Okay, but you stay with me, and if I say run, you run. Understood?" Lena nodded. Sarah led them down to the basement, weapons still drawn, moving with the fluid efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. The basement was finished, with concrete floors and industrial lighting that cast harsh shadows. In the center of the space, Victor was slumped in a chair, his wrists zip-tied to the armrests, blood on his face and shirt. But he was conscious, and when he saw them, his whole body went rigid with relief and terror. "Lena, Maya," his voice was rough. "You're okay." "Thank God you're okay." Lena handed Maya to Carol and ran to him. Up close she could see the damage, a split lip, a cut above his eye, bruises already forming on his jaw and ribs. Rage flooded through her, hot and consuming. "Who did this to you?" "Doesn't matter. Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "We're fine." Victor, who... Isabel had 6 men. They came through the perimeter during the shift change when we were most vulnerable. He was talking fast, his eyes never leaving her face. "I tried to stop them, but they had the numbers. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was supposed to keep you safe, and You did." Lena cupped his face gently, careful of the bruises. "We're alive because of you. Because you had Sarah and her team. Because you prepared for this. They got to you anyway. But they didn't take us. They didn't hurt Maya. You kept your promise, Victor." One of Sarah's people appeared with a knife and cut the zip ties. Victor's hands were free, but he didn't move except to reach up and cover Lena's hands with his own, pressing them against his face like he needed the contact to believe she was real. "I heard the gunfire," he said quietly. I thought I'd lost you." "You didn't. We're here. We're safe." He pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers, and Lena felt something fundamental shift between them. This man had been beaten, tied up, threatened with death, and his first concern was still for them. Not revenge, not anger, just relief that they were okay. "Victor," she whispered, "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I was wrong." The words came out in a rush. 4 years ago, I was wrong. I thought I was protecting Maya by running, but all I did was take her away from someone who loves her, who would have protected her with everything he had. I was so scared of who you were that I couldn't see who you could become. Victor's hands tightened on hers. "Lena, let me finish." She pulled back enough to look him in the eye. "You've spent 3 years becoming someone worthy of being her father, of being my—" She stopped, the word catching in her throat. "And I kept punishing you for who you used to be instead of seeing who you are now. That wasn't fair. You deserved better." "I deserved exactly what I got," Victor said roughly. "You had every reason not to trust me, every reason to run. I'm just grateful you came back." "I'm not just back for a week anymore." Lena's voice was steady now, certain. "I'm staying. If you want us. If you still want to try, I'm staying." Victor's eyes closed, and when he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. "Are you sure? Because, Lena, once you say that, I'm not letting you go again. I can't." "I'm sure," she smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "We're a family, the three of us. And families don't run from each other. They fight together." "Mama?" Maya's small voice interrupted them. She was standing a few feet away with Carol, her eyes wide and worried. "Is Daddy okay?" Victor turned to her, and despite the blood and bruises, his smile was radiant. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Come here." Maya ran to him, and Victor scooped her up with a wince that he tried to hide, holding her tight. "I'm sorry I scared you, baby girl, but everything's going to be okay now." "Promise?" "Promise." He kissed the top of her head, then looked at Lena over their daughter's curls. "I promise all of you, we're going to end this. Together." Sarah cleared her throat. "Sir, I hate to interrupt, but we need to move. Isabel knows where this location is now. We're sitting ducks if we stay." Victor nodded, already shifting into the mode Lena recognized. Controlled, strategic, dangerous. But this time, she wasn't afraid of it. This time, she understood that the man who could be ruthless when protecting his family was the same man who made chocolate chip pancakes and built swing sets on hope. "Where can we go?" Lena asked. "I have another property, smaller, more remote. No one knows about it except Sarah." Victor set Maya down carefully and stood, wincing. "We can regroup there, figure out our next move." "No." Lena's voice was firm. "No more running, no more hiding. We end this now." "Lena, it's too dangerous." "Everything's dangerous," she shot back. "Staying here is dangerous. Running is dangerous. But I'm done letting Isabel Moretti dictate our lives. You said you had leverage on her, so use it." Victor looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not the gentle smile he gave Maya, but something sharper, more like the man he used to be. "You're sure about this?" "I'm sure. She came into your house. She threatened our daughter. She hurt you." Lena's hands clenched into fists. "She doesn't get to walk away from that." "Okay." Victor pulled out his phone, wincing as the movement pulled at his bruised ribs. "Sarah, get me secure comms, and find out where Isabel Moretti is right now. I don't care what it takes." "Yes, sir." Victor turned to Carol, who'd been watching all of this with sharp, assessing eyes. "Ma'am, I'm sorry you've been dragged into this. If you want to leave, I can arrange—" "I'm not going anywhere," Carol interrupted. "That woman threatened my granddaughter. I want to see her pay for it." Despite everything, Victor laughed. "I can see where Lena gets her strength." "Damn right." Carol moved to stand beside her daughter, and Lena felt a surge of gratitude for this fierce, unbreakable woman who'd raised her to never back down. Sarah returned with a laptop and secure phone. "Moretti's at her family estate in Lake Forest. She arrived 20 minutes ago. Our contact says she's in her office, alone. Perfect. Victor's smile was cold. Set up the call. It's time Isabel and I had a conversation about boundaries. 5 minutes later, they were gathered around the laptop in the basement, watching as the call connected. Isabel's face appeared on the screen, composed and beautiful despite the chaos she'd just fled. When she saw Victor, bloodied but upright, her expression flickered with surprise. You got out faster than I expected. You underestimated my people, and me. Victor's voice was ice. That was a mistake. Was it? Because from where I'm sitting, I accomplished exactly what I intended. I proved that I can get to you anytime I want, that your precious new life isn't as safe as you thought. And I'm about to prove that you should have left well enough alone. Victor leaned forward, his eyes hard. I have documentation of every illegal transaction your family's made in the last 5 years. Names, dates, amounts. Enough to put your father and both your brothers in federal prison for the rest of their lives. Isabel's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Am I? Victor pulled up a file on the laptop and turned it so the camera could see. Even from Lena's angle, she could make out names and numbers, official-looking documents stamped with legal seals. This goes to the FBI in... He checked his watch. 12 hours unless you do exactly what I say. You wouldn't. Releasing that information would implicate you too. I don't care. Victor's voice was flat, certain. I walked away from that life, Isabel. I have nothing left to hide and nothing left to lose. But you? Your family's entire empire would collapse. Everything your father built would be gone, and you'd spend the rest of your life watching them rot in prison, knowing you're the reason why. Isabel's face had gone white. What do you want? I want you to disappear. Victor's words were carefully spaced, deliberate. I want you to leave Chicago, leave Illinois, and never come within 100 miles of my family again. I want you to forget Lena exists, forget Maya exists, forget I exist. And if I refuse, then 12 hours from now, your life as you know it ends. Victor's smile was sharp. Choose wisely, Isabel, because I won't offer this deal twice. Isabel stared at him through the screen, and Lena could see the calculations running behind her eyes, the weighing of options, the search for leverage she no longer had. You've changed, Isabel said finally. The old Victor would never have threatened me like this. He would have just handled it quietly. The old Victor didn't have a daughter to protect, he replied. The old Victor didn't have anything worth fighting for. Now I do. And I'll burn your whole world down before I let you threaten them again. And if I agree, if I leave, what guarantee do I have that you won't release that information anyway? You have my word. Victor's voice softened slightly. I'm not doing this for revenge, Isabel. I'm doing it to protect my family. If you leave us alone, I have no reason to destroy yours. But if you ever come near Lena or Maya again, if you so much as send them a threatening look, I won't hesitate. That information goes public, and I'll make sure everyone knows why. Isabel was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed, bitter and broken. You really do love her, don't you? This isn't about strategy or power. You actually love this woman. More than anything in the world. Then you're a fool. But there was no heat in it anymore, just resignation. Fine. You win. I'll leave. You'll never see me again. Smart choice. Victor started to end the call, then paused. And Isabel, if I find out you've sent anyone else after us, if anything happens to my family that traces back to you in any way, the deal's off. Understood? Understood. Isabel's image disappeared as she ended the call from her side. The basement fell into silence. Victor sat back in his chair, the adrenaline finally leaving his system, and Lena saw how much the confrontation had cost him. He was swaying slightly, his face pale beneath the bruises. Sarah, get medical up here, Lena said quickly. He needs to be checked out. I'm fine, Victor protested, but his voice was weak. You're not fine. You've been beaten, tied up, and you probably have a concussion. Lena moved to his side, supporting him. Let someone take care of you for once. He looked up at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. You're staying, he said, like he still couldn't quite believe it. You're really staying. I'm really staying. Lena brushed his hair back from his forehead, gentle around the injuries. Someone needs to make sure you don't do anything stupid. Might as well be me. And me? Maya pushed her way between them, wrapping her small arms around Victor's leg. I'm staying too. Right, Daddy? Right, sweetheart. Victor's voice broke slightly as he looked down at his daughter. You're both staying. We're all staying together. Carol spoke up from her position by the door. I think I'll head back to Oregon, actually. Give you all some space to figure out this family thing. Mom, you don't need me hovering, Lena. And honestly, I could use some peace and quiet after all this excitement. But Carol's eyes were warm as she looked at her daughter. Call me when you're settled and bring my granddaughter to visit. I will. Thank you for everything. That's what mothers do. Carol moved to give Lena a hug, then surprised everyone by hugging Victor too. Take care of them, she said quietly. Both of them. Or I'll come back and finish what Isabel started. Victor managed a smile. Yes, ma'am. The medic arrived and began checking Victor's injuries while Sarah organized transport back to the secure property. Lena stayed close, one hand in Victor's, the other holding Maya, her family. Imperfect, complicated, forged in danger and held together by hope. But hers. As the medic cleaned Victor's wounds and Sarah coordinated their departure, Lena felt the weight of 4 years finally lifting from her shoulders. She'd run because she was afraid. She'd hidden because she thought it was the only way to keep Maya safe. But safety wasn't about running. It was about standing with the people you loved, facing the dangers together, and trusting that you'd be there to catch each other when you fell. She'd learned that the hard way. But she'd learned. Lena? Victor's voice pulled her from her thoughts. What are you thinking about? The future, she said. For the first time in 4 years, I'm actually thinking about the future. His hand tightened around hers. What does it look like? Lena looked at Maya, already chattering to the medic about Mr. Hops and his missing ear. Then she looked at Victor, battered but upright, his eyes full of love and hope and determination. It looks like us, she said simply. All of us. Together. Together, Victor echoed. I like the sound of that. Me too. And for the first time since she'd walked into that Chicago cafe and locked eyes with the man she'd run from, Lena felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope. Not the desperate, fragile hope of someone running from their past, but the solid, certain hope of someone ready to build a future. Whatever came next, whether Isabel kept her word, whether new threats emerged, whether the path ahead was smooth or full of obstacles, they'd face it together, as a family. And that was worth fighting for. The secure property Victor took them to was nothing like the safe house. It was smaller, older, a renovated farmhouse on 50 acres of land that rolled away in gentle hills toward a distant tree line. No high walls, no obvious security, just a worn gravel driveway, and a house that looked like it had been standing there for 100 years. But Lena noticed the cameras hidden in the eaves, the reinforced door frames, the way Sarah's team had positioned themselves around the perimeter before Victor even pulled the SUV to a stop. It's not much, Victor said as he helped Maya out of the car. The medic had cleared him with orders to rest, ice his ribs, and avoid getting beaten up for at least a week. But it's secure, and it's ours. Lena looked at the house, at the porch swing moving gently in the winter breeze, and felt something settle in her chest. This wasn't a fortress, it was a home. It's perfect, she said. They spent the rest of the day settling in. Carol left after lunch, catching a car service to the airport, with promises to call when she landed. Maya explored every corner of the house with the boundless energy of a child who'd already forgotten the morning's terror, finding treasures in old closets and declaring the attic bedroom hers despite Victor's concerns about the stairs. By evening, Victor was moving stiffly, his bruises darkening to purple and black despite the ice packs. Lena finally ordered him to sit down and stop pretending he was fine. I'm fine, he protested, even as he lowered himself carefully onto the couch. You have 3 cracked ribs and a concussion. You're the opposite of fine. She handed him 2 pain pills and a glass of water. Take these. Rest. Let someone else be in charge for 5 minutes. Victor took the pills, but his eyes never left her face. I'm not used to being taken care of. Get used to it. Lena sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. That's what families do. They take care of each other. Family. He said the word like he was testing its weight. Is that what we are now? What else would we be? I don't know. He stopped, searching for words. 4 days ago, you could barely stand to be in the same room with me. Now you're talking about staying, about being a family. It feels too good to be real. Lena understood the fear beneath his words. She'd felt it too, the terror of hoping for something you'd convinced yourself you could never have. But watching him with Maya over the past few days, seeing the man he'd become, she'd realized that fear was just another kind of prison. It's real, she said firmly. I'm real. Maya's real. This is happening, Victor. You just have to trust it. I'm trying. His voice was rough. But every time I close my eyes, I see Isabel's men coming through that door. I see you and Maya in danger, and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't protect you. You did protect us. We're alive because of you. But what if next time there won't be a next time? Lena took his hand, lacing their fingers together. Isabel's gone. You made sure of that. And if anyone else tries to threaten our family, we'll handle it. Together. Victor looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. I love you, he said quietly. I know I've said it before, but I need you to hear it again. I love you, Lena. I loved you 4 years ago. I loved you every day you were gone, and I'll love you for the rest of my life. That's not going to change. Lena's throat tightened. She'd heard those words from him before, back when she'd thought love meant possession and protection meant control. But this was different. This love was offered freely, without demands or conditions. This love trusted her to choose, and she chose him. I love you too, she whispered. I think I never stopped. I had to learn to trust you again, to trust myself. Victor's eyes closed, and when he opened them again, they were bright with emotion. Say it again. I love you. The words came easier this time, more certain. I love you, Victor Hale, and I'm done running from it. He pulled her close, ignoring the pain it caused his ribs, and kissed her. It was gentle and desperate all at once. 4 years of longing and loss and hope poured into the connection of lips and breath and beating hearts. Lena melted into him, her hands coming up to frame his face, careful of his bruises but needing the contact like she needed air. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, he said. Lena pulled back, startled. What? Marry me. He was smiling now, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. I know it's fast. I know we have things to figure out. But Lena, I've wasted 4 years without you. I don't want to waste another day. Marry me. Make this official. Let me be your husband and Maya's father in every way that matters. Lena's heart was racing. A week ago, she would have said it was too soon, too risky. She would have listed all the reasons why they needed to take things slow, build trust gradually, make sure Maya adjusted before making any permanent changes. But she was done being afraid. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Victor's smile could have lit up the night. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Lena felt the last of her walls crumble. This was right. This was real. This was the future she'd been too afraid to imagine. Mama? Daddy? They broke apart to find Maya standing in the doorway, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm, watching them with wide, curious eyes. Hey, sweetheart, Lena said, her voice slightly breathless. What's up? Are you kissing? Victor laughed. Yes, we are. Is that okay? Maya considered this seriously. Then she climbed onto the couch between them and announced, I want to kiss too. She planted a sloppy kiss on Victor's cheek, then Lena's, then sat back looking satisfied. There, now we're all kissing. Now we're all kissing, Victor agreed, pulling her into his lap. Maya, your mama and I need to tell you something. Okay. We're going to be a real family now, all of us living together, and I'm going to ask your mama to marry me, which means we'll all have the same last name. Would you like that? Maya's eyes went wide. Really? We'll all be together forever? Forever, Victor confirmed. If that's what you want. That's what I want. Maya threw her arms around his neck, nearly headbutting his bruised jaw in her enthusiasm. I want us to be a family. Lena watched them, her heart so full it hurt. This was what she'd been protecting Maya from. This joy, this connection, this chance to know her father. And in trying to keep her safe, she'd kept her from something precious. But they were here now, together. And that was what mattered. The next morning, Victor's phone rang at dawn. Lena woke to the sound of his voice, low and controlled, speaking to someone in the clipped tones that meant business. She slipped out of bed. They'd fallen asleep together on the couch the night before, Maya between them, and found him in the kitchen, still on the phone. He saw her and held up a finger. 1 minute. Understood. Keep me posted. He ended the call and turned to her. That was my contact at the FBI. Lena's stomach dropped. What happened? Isabel left the country last night. Took a private jet to Paris. My contact says she's not planning to come back. Victor set down the phone, his expression carefully neutral. It's over, Lena. She's really gone. The relief was so intense that Lena's knees went weak. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. Are you sure? As sure as I can be. She transferred a significant amount of money overseas, closed her accounts here, told her family she needed time away. All the signs point to her keeping her word. What about Marcus Chen, Thomas Volkov? Chen's been quiet since he heard about Isabel's departure. I think he was counting on her to provide the muscle for any move against me. Without her, he doesn't have the resources. Victor moved closer, his hand settling on her waist. And Volkov reached out yesterday through a mutual contact. He wants to meet. Lena tensed. Is that safe? It's necessary. I need to make it clear that you and Maya are off limits, that anyone who comes after my family will face consequences they can't imagine. His voice was hard now, echoes of the man he used to be. But I'll meet him on neutral ground, with security. I'm not taking chances. When? Tomorrow. Downtown, public place, middle of the day. Sarah will be with me, and I'll have backup position throughout the area. He pulled her closer, careful of his ribs. I need to close this door, Lena. Make sure everyone from my old life understands that I'm done, that my family is protected, and then we can move forward without looking over our shoulders. Lena understood. This was the last piece, the final conversation that would let them truly start fresh. Okay, but I'm coming with you. Lena, I'm coming with you, she repeated firmly. You said we do this together. That means I don't sit home wondering if you're going to come back. I'm there, by your side, showing Volkov and anyone else watching that we're a united front. Victor studied her face, and she saw the moment he decided not to argue. Okay, but Maya stays here with Sarah's team, non-negotiable. Agreed. Lena had no intention of bringing their daughter anywhere near this meeting. We'll leave her with Sarah. She'll be safe here. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Victor made calls, arranged the meeting location, coordinated security. Lena talked to Maya about staying with Sarah for a few hours, framing it as a special playdate. And that night, after Maya was asleep, Victor went over every detail of the plan until Lena knew it by heart. The meeting was set for noon at Millennium Park, near the bean sculpture where tourists gathered in crowds thick enough to provide cover but sparse enough to spot threats. Victor would approach from the north, Lena from the south, meeting in the middle where Volkov would be waiting. Sarah and her team would be positioned in a perimeter, watching for any sign of trouble. What if he brings people? Lena asked. He will, but they'll be there as a show of respect, not a threat. Volkov's old school. He believes in protocol, in doing things the right way. This meeting is about establishing boundaries, not starting a war. And if you're wrong? Victor looked at her steadily. Then you run. Don't wait for me, don't try to help. You get to the extraction point and you let Sarah get you back to Maya. Promise me, Lena. She didn't want to promise. Every instinct screamed against leaving him if things went wrong, but she also knew that Maya needed at least one parent to come home. I promise, she said, but you better come back to us. Always. He kissed her forehead, then her lips, soft and lingering. I'll always come back to you. The next morning dawned cold and clear, winter sunlight glinting off the snow-covered ground. Lena dressed in layers, jeans, boots, a coat that concealed the panic button Victor had insisted she wear. Maya was still asleep when they left, Sarah sitting beside her bed with a book. a weapon within easy reach. The drive into the city was quiet. Victor held her hand the whole way, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, a small gesture of comfort that steadied them both. When they arrived at the park, he squeezed her hand once, hard. "Remember the plan. Stay visible. If anything feels wrong, you run." "I will." She squeezed back. Be careful." "You too." They separated, Victor heading north while Lena circled around to approach from the south. The park was busy despite the cold, tourists and locals mixing together in the holiday crowds. Lena spotted Sarah's team almost immediately. They were good, but Victor had told her what to look for. A man reading a newspaper near the entrance, a woman with a stroller positioned by the skating rink, a couple taking selfies near the sculpture, their eyes constantly scanning. She felt safer knowing they were there. At exactly noon, Lena reached the meeting point. Victor was already there, standing with his hands in his pockets, looking relaxed despite the tension she knew he was feeling. And across from him stood a man who could only be Thomas Volkov. He was older than she'd expected, maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of face that had seen too much and forgotten none of it. He wore an expensive coat and leather gloves, and two men flanked him at a respectful distance. Bodyguards, clearly, but not threatening. Volkov's eyes tracked Lena as she approached, assessing her with the sharp gaze of someone who made his living reading people. When she reached Victor's side, his eyebrows rose slightly. "So this is the woman who made Victor Hale give up his empire," Volkov said. His accent was thick, Russian vowels blurring the edges of his words. "I wondered what kind of person could accomplish such a thing." "I didn't make him give up anything," Lena said evenly. "He made that choice himself." "Did he?" Volkov smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Or did you simply give him something he wanted more?" "Does it matter?" Victor's voice was cold. "I'm out, Thomas. Have been for 3 years. Whatever business we had together ended when I walked away. And yet you call me here demanding a meeting. That suggests our business is not quite finished." "Our business is finished. This is about making sure you understand the new rules." Victor's expression was hard, uncompromising. "My family is off limits. My partner, my daughter, anyone connected to me. You don't touch them, you don't threaten them, you don't even look at them sideways. Are we clear?" Volkov was quiet for a moment, studying Victor with those sharp, calculating eyes. "You have a daughter." "I do." "How old?" "That's none of your concern." "I have grandchildren," Volkov said, surprising them both. 3 of them. I would do anything to protect them, kill anyone who threatened them. So yes, Victor, I understand your position. Then you understand why I'm telling you this is your only warning. Anyone who comes after my family will not live to regret it. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Victor's voice dropped, went deadly quiet. I walked away from that life, Thomas, but I didn't forget how it worked. I still have connections. I still have resources. And I still know exactly how to dismantle someone who crosses me. The only difference now is that I have something worth fighting for, which makes me exponentially more dangerous than I ever was before. Volkov held his gaze for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. A real smile this time, with something almost like respect in it. You have changed, he said. The old Victor would have simply eliminated the threat without this conversation. This is better, more civilized. I'm trying to be civilized. Don't make me regret it. I won't. Volkov extended his hand. You have my word, Victor. Your family is safe from me and mine. I have no interest in starting a war with a man who has nothing left to lose. Victor shook his hand, the gesture formal and binding. Thank you. But I will ask one thing in return. Lena's whole body tensed, but Victor's expression didn't change. What? Stay out of Chicago. Your presence here creates complications, raises questions. People remember you, Victor. They remember what you were capable of. And some of them, not me, but some, will see you as a threat simply by existing. Volkov's eyes were serious now. Take your family somewhere else. Build your new life far from the shadows of the old one. That way, there will be no accidents, no misunderstandings, just peace. It was a reasonable request, more than reasonable, considering the alternative. But Lena saw Victor hesitate, saw him weighing the cost of leaving the city he'd once commanded. Chicago is my home, he said finally. It was your home, Volkov corrected gently. But you have a new home now, wherever your family is. Am I wrong? Victor looked at Lena, the question clear in his eyes. She thought about the farmhouse, quiet and safe and far from the memories that haunted this city. She thought about Maya growing up somewhere clean, somewhere without the weight of Victor's past hanging over them. He's right, she said softly. Chicago was your home, but it doesn't have to be anymore. Victor's hand found hers and squeezed. Then he turned back to Volkov. Okay, we'll relocate. You have my word. Then we have an understanding. Volkov nodded to his men, who immediately began moving back toward the parking lot. I hope you find peace, Victor. You've earned it. He walked away, his bodyguards falling into step beside him, and within moments they disappeared into the crowd. Lena let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That went better than expected, she said. It did. Victor was still watching the spot where Volkov had disappeared, his expression thoughtful. He's right, you know, about leaving. As long as we stay in Chicago, there will always be someone who remembers, someone who sees an opportunity or a threat. We can't build a real life here. So where do we go? Anywhere you want. He turned to her, his storm-gray eyes warm despite the cold. The farmhouse is ours if you want it, or we could go back to Oregon, to your town, or somewhere completely new. You choose, Lena. I'll follow. The offer was so simple, so trusting, that it took her breath away. He was giving her complete control over their future, no conditions, no demands, just faith that wherever she chose would be right. The farmhouse, she said. It feels like home already, and Maya loves it. Then the farmhouse it is. Victor pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her despite the crowd around them. We'll make it official. Transfer the deed into both our names. Build a life there. Together. Together, Lena echoed, and felt the last piece click into place. They were really doing this, building a family, a future, a life far from the shadows that had haunted them both, and it felt like coming home. The weeks that followed passed in a blur of planning and preparations. They officially relocated to the farmhouse, bringing Maya's few belongings and the pieces of Lena's life in Oregon that mattered. Victor arranged for the apartment in River North to be sold, the safe house transferred to Sarah as payment for her loyalty. He closed his security consulting firm and started over, building something smaller and more legitimate. Freelance risk assessment, all done remotely, nothing that required him to step back into the world he'd left behind. Lena found work as a freelance writer, crafting stories and articles from the farmhouse office while Maya played in the yard. It was quiet work, peaceful. So different from the chaos of waitressing while looking over her shoulder. She could breathe here. She could think. She could just be. And every evening, when Victor came home from whatever project he was working on, they'd have dinner together as a family. Maya would chatter about her day, about the butterflies she'd seen or the fort she'd built in the woods. Victor would listen like she was describing miracles, and Lena would watch them, these two people she loved more than anything, and feel gratitude so intense it was almost painful. This was what she'd been afraid of 4 years ago, this connection, this vulnerability, this overwhelming love that made her dependent on someone else's presence. But she understood now that dependence and partnership were different things. Loving Victor didn't make her weak. It made her stronger, because she knew he'd catch her if she fell. And she'd catch him too. 2 months after the meeting with Volkov, on a Saturday morning bright with spring sunshine, they got married. It was a small ceremony in the backyard, just them and Maya and Sarah, and a justice of the peace Victor had known for years. No fancy dress, no elaborate decorations. Just vows spoken under an old oak tree while Maya stood between them, holding both their hands. I promise to love you, Victor said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. To respect your choices, to trust your judgment, and to never take your presence in my life for granted. I promise to be the father Maya deserves and the partner you need. And I promise that no matter what comes, we face it together, as a family. Lena's throat was tight with tears, but she managed to speak. I promise to trust you, even when it's hard. To believe in the man you've become, not the man you were. I promise to build this life with you, to raise our daughter together, and to never run from the love between us. You're my partner, my family, my home, and I choose you. Every day I choose you." The justice of the peace pronounced them husband and wife, and Victor kissed her while Maya cheered and Sarah applauded, and the spring birds sang in the trees above them. It was perfect, simple and honest and real, everything they'd fought for. That night, after Maya was asleep and Sarah had left, Lena and Victor sat on the porch swing, watching the stars come out over the fields. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Do you have any regrets?" she asked quietly. "About what?" "Leaving your old life, giving up the power, the control, living quietly out here instead of commanding a city." Victor was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd kept building that empire, accumulating more power, more influence. I probably could have owned half of Chicago by now. But then I wouldn't have this." He gestured to the farmhouse, the land, the life they'd built. "I wouldn't have you. I wouldn't have Maya. I wouldn't wake up every morning feeling like I matter for something other than fear and money. So no, Lena, I don't have regrets. This life, this quiet, normal life with you, is worth more than any empire." Lena turned to look up at him. "I was so wrong about you." "When?" 4 years ago. I thought you couldn't change. I thought the violence and control were fundamental parts of who you were. But they weren't. They were just armor, protection against a world that felt dangerous. And you taught me I didn't need that armor anymore," Victor said softly. "You taught me that being vulnerable wasn't the same as being weak, that loving someone meant trusting them to make their own choices, even if those choices took them away from you. I'm not going anywhere. I know." He kissed the top of her head. "And that still feels like a miracle sometimes." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the night deepen around them. Somewhere in the house, Maya was dreaming peacefully, safe and loved and surrounded by family. And here on the porch, two people who'd once thought they'd lost each other forever had found their way back to something better than they'd had before. Not perfect. They still had moments of friction, old patterns surfacing in arguments that had to be worked through with patience and communication. Victor still struggled with his instinct to control situations rather than trust others to handle them. Lena still had moments of doubt, old fears whispering that this was too good to last. But they worked through it, together. That was the promise they'd made, and the promise they kept. 3 years later, Maya started kindergarten at the local school. She was bright and curious and utterly fearless, with her father's determination and her mother's warmth. She told everyone who would listen about her daddy, who used to be important but gave it all up for love, and her mama who ran away but came back because families belonged together. The other parents found the story charming. They had no idea how literally true it was. Victor walked her to the bus stop every morning, holding her hand and carrying her backpack, looking like any other devoted father. And Lena watched from the window, her hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly. A new life growing, a brother or sister for Maya, another chance to get it right from the beginning. She'd told Victor about the pregnancy last week, watching his face transform from shock to joy to overwhelming tenderness. He dropped to his knees in front of her, pressed his face to her stomach, and cried. Happy tears this time. Grateful tears. "I get to be there from the start," he'd whispered. "I get to see it all." "You get to see it all," she'd confirmed. Now, watching him with Maya, Lena thought about how far they'd come. From that moment in the cafe when their eyes had met across the crowd. From the fear and running and desperate years apart. From the tentative first steps toward trust and the terrifying leap into love. They'd built something real here, something solid. A family forged not in perfection, but in the hard work of choosing each other every single day. Victor came back from the bus stop and found her at the window. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands settling over hers on her belly. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything," she said. "The past, the future. How lucky we are. We make our own luck." But his voice was soft, agreeable. "Though I'll admit, finding you again felt like more than luck. Felt like fate." "Do you believe in fate?" "I believe in second chances. And I believe that some things are worth fighting for, no matter how impossible they seem." He turned her around to face him, his storm-gray eyes warm with love. You were worth fighting for. Maya was worth fighting for. This life was worth every sacrifice I made to get here. Lena reached up and cupped his face, this complicated, beautiful man who'd torn down an empire to build a family. I love you. I love you too. He kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promise. Always. From somewhere down the road came the sound of children's laughter, the bus carrying Maya and her classmates to school. The sound of normal life, everyday life, the kind of life Lena had once thought they could never have. But they had it now. And they would protect it, nurture it, grow it into something even more beautiful with time. Together. Because that was what families did. They chose each other every single day and built a life worth living from the foundation of that choice. And in the end, that choice, that daily, conscious, determined choice to love and trust and stay, was the greatest power either of them had ever known. Far greater than empires built on fear. Far stronger than walls built for protection. The power of choosing to stay, to fight, to love, even when it was hard. That was the power that had brought them here. And that was the power that would carry them forward into whatever future waited beyond this perfect, ordinary morning. Together, always together. And that was more than enough. It was everything.